Chapter 44-33. Only until here did Xiongyi suddenly discover that Xiaohua's tone was different. He was startled in his heart and hurriedly knelt down and said, "Master, this disciple has failed Master's great trust." Nearly half of the Fortune Gate's disciples were killed. Disciple has let Master down. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves, not allowing Xiongyi to kneel. Instead, he said indifferently, "This matter has already passed. Master also does not intend to blame you all for this matter. Although more than half of our Fortune Gate's disciples were killed, Bai Qingyu's demonic beast clans were almost annihilated, and the heaven-concealing ridge and ancient Bell Mountain were also taken over by our Fortune Gate. These disciples have already been avenged." Unfortunately, Xiongyi still didn't dare to get up. He still lowered his head and said, "Master, this disciple knows that you are blaming this disciple for not taking the lives of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's disciples seriously. Actually, disciple wanted to come to Bai Qingyu alone that day, but disciple knew that with disciple's strength, it would be extremely difficult to rescue Master. Disciple could only rely on the strength of soaring Dragon Mountain Range's disciples to have a sliver of hope to rescue Master. Of course, even if they managed to save their Master, the lives of these tens of thousands of disciples would definitely be left behind in Bai Qingyu's hands. However, disciple has already made it clear to Master that disciple is not a good teacher, but I am definitely a good state preceptor. Disciple is willing to bear the infamy to save Master. After all, his Master's life was more valuable than the lives of tens of thousands of disciples in the soaring Dragon Mountain Range. With a Master, he could create a new soaring Dragon Mountain Range, or even 2 or 3 new soaring Dragon Mountain Ranges. But without Master, this soaring Dragon Mountain Range would not last for long. Therefore, at the Fortune Dao Palace, the disciples did not hesitate to fall out with them. They insisted that the disciples of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range risk their lives to save Master. This is disciple's fault. Disciple is no longer qualified to manage the Fortune Gate's affairs. Disciple is willing to fulfill his filial piety in front of Master and atone for the deaths of the tens of thousands of disciples. Xiaohua silently looked at Xiongyi. After listening to his words, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Xiaohua was originally soft-hearted and not good at planning, so he was not the first choice to be the sect leader. In Huang Xiaolong's opinion, he would rather give up his life than let several tens of thousands of Fortune Gate disciples save him. However, what Xiongyi said was correct. After all, as the leader of a sect, he had to be far-sighted, decisive, and even decisive. This is what Xiaohua lacks. And the Xiongyi in front of him was precisely such a talent. He knew how important Xiaohua was. For the sake of the Fortune Gate's future, Xiaohua was willing to sacrifice tens of thousands of soaring Dragon Mountain Range's disciples. This action could be considered cold-blooded and callous, but it was also where Xiongyi stood out from the crowd. It was an extremely calm and wise choice. And now, seeing that Xiaohua's tone was unkind, Xiongyi had already keenly sensed Xiaohua's displeasure. He knew that he might have chosen to go against Xiaohua's benevolence because of this. Without waiting for Xiaohua to say anything, he immediately took the initiative to admit his guilt. However, Xiongyi still thought too much. Xiaohua didn't think about it at all. If it wasn't for Xiongyi's reminder, he really didn't know that Xiongyi was under so much pressure. Disciple. Xiaohua thinks for a moment and says, "Master knows that I am not a qualified sect leader. Not good at the trifling matters of the sect, not good at the development of the sect, and not good at winning over people's hearts. Therefore, when I met you, I said that I would give you a chance to display your talents. I wanted to let the sect that I had created flourish in your hands. Your choice. I have no way to judge it. From the bottom of my heart, Master does not agree. Master feels that everyone's life is equally important, and there should be no distinction between importance and importance. But in reality, what you did was correct. If it wasn't for me, there would be no soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate, and there wouldn't be the current Fortune Gate's disciples. You used the lives of tens of thousands of disciples in exchange for my life. There is nothing wrong with that. Therefore, disciple, you can rest assured that the Fortune Gate will still be yours in the future. Not only will you have to deal with the Fortune Gate's affairs, Master will also let you do. Before Xiaohua could finish, Xiong Yi hurriedly interjected, Master, you think too highly of disciple. Not to mention senior brothers Xian Songzi and Daoist Master Jing Ting, even junior brothers Lu Yi, Fu Jiwen, and the others' cultivations are much higher than disciples. How can disciples shoulder such a heavy responsibility? Strength is strength, ability is ability. Not every Grand Ascension stage cultivator is a good sect leader. Not every sect leader has to have an extremely high cultivation base. Xiaohua's mood improved, and he smiled. However, your words have reminded Master that you have to think about how to develop the Fortune Gate in the future for Master. Every time Master thinks about it, it gives Master a headache. Xiong Yi smiled bitterly, Master, it's not that disciple doesn't want to think about it, but the Fortune Gate's development is too fast. Disciple was still thinking about how to arrange for those golden core disciples when Master suddenly sent over 200,000 6th-grade disciples, much stronger than Disciple. Disciple was caught unprepared. Moreover, Disciple had never thought that our Tao Gate could be established on the hidden immortal mainland, and become such a big sect. Disciple, don't worry, take your time to think. We have time, we have strength, and there will be opportunities in the future. Xiaohua comforted, as long as what you do is beneficial to the Fortune Gate, Master will support you. Then, Xiong Yi was relieved when he heard that. Seeing that Xiaohua's mood had improved, he asked tentatively, Master, your words just now, what did you mean? I'm sure you already know what I told Ao Zhantian earlier. Back then, I saved many Daoist sect cultivators on the Yaotai mountain. Xiaohua thought for a moment when he saw Xiong Yi's reaction. Xiaohua roughly explained the situation to Xiong Yi before saying, however, I didn't expect that these cultivators would actually jump out at the first sign of trouble and try to benefit from it. Hehe, so that's how it is. Xiong Yi laughed, and said, didn't Master say before? A good sect leader doesn't necessarily have a good cultivation. In fact, in terms of winning people's hearts and expanding one's influence, one doesn't necessarily have to rely on absolute strength. Although Master's strength is powerful, it can only convince people on the surface, but not in their hearts. Once something happens to Master, some people will definitely jump out. Only a small portion of people are loyal, and the majority can only be used. Even if Master wants to use these forces, Master still has to use methods. Using kindness and coercion is one way, and using the advantages and disadvantages is another way. Master probably doesn't care about these methods. However, Master, you should be happy as well. According to senior brother Ao Zhantian, there are many Dao sect cultivators who are disloyal, but not many of them are willing to do so. There are many Dao sect cultivators, and even the Dragon Tribe and Demon Tribe cultivators who have come to rescue Master. Alas, cultivation is still easier. Xiaohua waved his hand, and said, these scheming things are too tiring. Master, you're a transcendent being, so you don't have to worry so much. Disciple and the others are different, and we can't not consider so many things. Xiong Yi smiled bitterly. Xiaohua smiled, and asked again, Disciple, you said that the Fortune Gate Palace has different opinions about coming to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm to rescue Master? Xiong Yi didn't hide it, and nodded, and said, yes. Some junior brothers think that the foundation of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range is important, and even if we go to Bai Qingyu, we'll just be throwing our lives away, so they don't want the soaring Dragon Mountain Range disciples to come and rescue us. At this point, Xiong Yi hurriedly explained, of course, this idea is not wrong. After all, senior brother Ao Zhantian, Zhang Daoran, esteemed Sun Kong, and Senior Zhai Xingzi all have the same idea. They want to rely on their own strength and not give up all their strength. Does Chang Yu also have the same idea? Xiao Hua couldn't help but ask. No. Xiong Yi answered without hesitation, junior brother Chang Yu is the one who supports his disciples the most. If it weren't for the fact that his disciples are all weak, he would have brought all of them. Then what about the disciples he brought? Xiao Hua asked. Most of the disciples he brought are senior brother Li Xiang's. Xiong Yi explained, although he isn't particularly familiar with these disciples, they are still much stronger than his own disciples. It's a pity that junior brother Chang Yu was unlucky and didn't get to meet Master. Disciple, can you tell me about the Fortune Gate Palace's situation, and the Soaring Dragon Mountain range to Bai Qingyu? Xiao Hua's expression didn't change, and he asked again. Of course. Xiong Yi was a little suspicious, and he smiled apologetically. However, Master, disciple might not remember clearly. It's best to ask senior brother Li Xiang and junior brother Lan to fill in the gaps. No matter. Xiao Hua smiled, these are all things of the past. Go ahead and tell me, Master will ask them in the future. That's good. Xiong Yi nodded and recounted everything. When he finished, Xiao Hua nodded and said, it's not easy for all of you. It's not wrong for everyone to make different choices. Go back to the Kunlun immortal realm and cultivate well. Oh, don't forget, help Master think about how to develop the Fortune Gate in the future. In the future, Master will rely on your ability to bring the Fortune Gate to greater heights. Yes, Master. Xiong Yi bowed respectfully and was immediately sent into the Shenhua continent by Xiao Hua. Fellow Taoist Wu, how is it? Xiao Hua put away the Kunlun mirror and looked at the side where Xiong Yi was previously standing. Taoist Wu's figure appeared. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, there are no changes in the soul. If I'm not mistaken, what Xiong Yi said is the truth. Of course, human nature is the most complicated thing in the world. I can't guarantee that all soul techniques will succeed. If what Xiong Yi said is true, then I's suspicion of Chang Yu was wrong. Xiao Hua's face turned cold, then there's only one possibility left. Xin Ping didn't recognize Chang Yu before, and Chang Yu didn't collude with Shui Mingzi. Xin Ping had seen Chang Yu in his nascent soul state after abandoning his physical body. If Chang Yu didn't see difficulties on the way to Bai Qingyu and changed his mind, then there's something wrong with Chang Yu's death. So complicated. Taoist Wu was puzzled, no wonder people's hearts are unpredictable. Fellow Taoist, you should ask fellow Taoist Wen Chu to come over and give you advice. I's better off cultivating. Chapter 44-34. Huh, alright. Xiao Hua laughed. Go ahead, fellow Taoist. Everything will come to light one day. Let's wait and see. Just as Taoist Witch was about to leave, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something and asked Taoist Witch in a low voice. Taoist Witch frowned and left after a few answers. Alas, man's ego is always higher than the sky. Xiao Hua sighed as he watched Taoist Witch disappear. If not for this ego, how could there be cultivators among the human race? If not for this ego, how could there be immortals in this world? But it's also because of this ego that there are too many disturbances, too much chaos, and too much suffering in this world. After saying that, Xiao Hua fell silent for a moment and took out the Kunlun mirror. As the light beam flashed, Ao Sheng was pulled out from the Shenhua continent. Needless to say, Ao Sheng was even more surprised by the starlight in the sky. However, Xiao Hua was not in a good mood and ignored him. After Ao Sheng finished muttering and saw that Xiao Hua did not say anything, he immediately lowered his head and asked cautiously, Dragon Master Xiao, why did you call me out? I've already promised you that I'll bring you out to experience and improve your strength. Xiaohua glanced at Ao Sheng, who had finally calmed down, and said, "Actually, the experience is secondary. The most important thing is, my good friend, Daoist Yun, has some opportunities. This opportunity has something to do with you. Daoist Yun wants to return some of this opportunity to you." Oh? Ao Sheng was confused and asked curiously, "Dragon Master Xiao, what you're saying? I don't seem to understand." It doesn't matter if you understand now." A rare smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. "You all took the risk to come to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm to rescue me. I must repay this kindness. As for what Daoist Yun gave you, you may not know now, and you may not know in the future. But when you do know, just think about what I said today." "Yes, Dragon Master Xiao." Ao Sheng nodded and said respectfully, "I understand. Dragon Master Xiao's kindness to me, and even to the dragon race, will be engraved in my heart." Xiaohua nodded and activated the Kunlun mirror in his hand. Under the light, Daoist Yun flew out of the space. After hearing Xiaohua's voice transmission, Daoist Yun shook his head and said, "Daoist, isn't Ao Sheng going to the Star Moon Palace with us? If he were to enter the Kunlun immortal realm to cultivate now, he would probably fall into a deep sleep first. Then, he would miss out on the opportunity to enter the Star Moon Palace." Daoist Yun, he said, patted his forehead, "I've been too hasty. I've forgotten about the Star Moon Palace." Ao Sheng looked at Xiaohua and did not dare to say anything. Star Moon Palace was a matter of great importance. How could Xiaohua forget about it? Daoist, Daoist Yun, Daoist, Daoist, Daoist B. Daoist, Daoist to Dao, Daoist, Daoist to him to break, Daoist, 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 Daoist forget, you, Daoist ist. Daoist. Daoist you. I'll always be the old hen who protects her children. Xiaohua said self-deprecatingly, "Even if I become an immortal, I'm afraid these disciples will still be in my heart, let alone a Mahayana. This is a blessing for us disciples." Ao Sheng finally understood something and said respectfully, "This disciple will be like Xiao Longsher and continue this love." Good. Xiaohua laughed and clapped his hands. "To be able to hear the word love from the mouth of a dragon, I've reaped the rewards of my efforts. If that's the case, we'll talk about this later. Daoist, please go back." Daoist. Daoist Yun suggested again, "It will take some time to reach the Star Moon Palace. Why don't I teach Ao Sheng some secret techniques of the dragon race? It can also lay a foundation for his future cultivation. I'll leave this to you, Daoist." Xiaohua said with a smile, "Actually, Dragon Master, should be yours." "Well said." Daoist Yun nodded. "Daoist, please open a mystic realm in Kunlun Immortal Realm so that Ao Sheng can cultivate in it." Xiaohua understood what Daoist Yun meant. He shook the Kunlun mirror and sent Daoist Yun and Ao Sheng to a void above Xinhua continent, where the two dragons could do whatever they wanted. As Daoist sorcerer had yet to return, Xiaohua simply brought Blackie and Goldie out of the void and talked to them while waiting. Although Goldie had already told Xiaohua about his experience in the past 200 years, it was still too simple. Now that there was no one else around, Goldie's chatterbox was opened again, jumping up and down on Xiaohua's body while talking. Blackie stood obediently on one of Xiaohua's shoulders, occasionally interrupting and correcting him, but most of the time, he just listened. Looking at the two cute little things with their own distinct characteristics, Xiaohua's heart was overflowing with fatherly love. He used his hand to touch the two little things' warm fur. Feeling the attachment of the two little things, he was deeply moved again. Others might not know how powerful Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast were, but he knew them very well. Even though they were severely injured, they were still not something that a human Mahayana realm cultivator could handle. It was hard to imagine that these two powerful demon beasts looked like this when they were young. However, Xiaohua also understood that although Blackie and Goldie had the bloodlines of Di Ting and the heaven-devouring beast, they still had a long way to go before they could cultivate to the same level as them. The blood crystals Xiaohua obtained from the heaven-devouring beast and Di Ting were the starting point of this path. 4 hours later, Daoist sorcerer finally returned. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat when he saw Daoist sorcerer's slightly gloomy face. How was it? What did I get? Is I right? I can't tell if fellow Daoist's guess is correct or not. Daoist Wu replied indifferently, there's a restriction in the souls of Daoist Qing Su, Daoist Fan Tian, and the other Daoist cultivators. Although I can break it, I'm afraid of alerting them and messing up fellow Daoists' arrangements, so I can't know the true intentions of the primordial chaos ancestor. I can't tell if these subordinates of the Grand Mist ancestor are sincere in helping the Fortune Gate or if they have ulterior motives. It's fine. Xiaohua's heart relaxed and he waved his hand, the truth will come out one day. If the Grand Mist ancestor doesn't have any ulterior motives and is sincere in helping the Fortune Gate, I will repay him generously. If he has ulterior motives, would I be afraid of him? Daoist sorcerer nodded and said, although I didn't find anything in the souls of Venerable Fan Tian and the others, I found the magic treasure that fellow Daoist gave to Changyu in Daoist Master Qing Su's spatial pouch. Oh? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and a cold smile appeared on his face. This is interesting. Could it be that Daoist Master Qing Su has something to do with Changyu's death? Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the sky, muttering to himself, but this magic treasure alone doesn't prove anything. Perhaps Daoist Master Qing Su picked it up on the road, or perhaps Daoist Master Qing Su met with danger together with Changyu and Prince Lan. Changyu sacrificed his life to protect Prince Lan, and the magic treasure was lost after he self-destructed. Daoist Master Qing Su picked up the magic treasure and didn't return it to Prince Lan. What if there is another magic treasure? Daoist sorcerer raised his hand and there was a ball of green light in his palm. Inside the ball of light, there was a faint soul that looked like a small person sleeping peacefully. Ah! Xiaohua was shocked. When he saw that the small person inside was Changyu, he was wild with joy. His mind rolled, and Changyu's soul that was about to disappear immediately fell into it. Xiaohua looked at it and didn't dare to be negligent. He released the netherworld origin power again and carefully sent this soul into the inside of the space. Just like Fairy Jing's soul, it was placed at the root of the netherworld fruit tree. After everything was done, Xiaohua heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Daoist sorcerer in bewilderment and said, didn't Changyu self-destruct his nascent soul? Where did you get his soul? Even if there is a primordial spirit imprint in his magic treasure, that shouldn't be enough to preserve his 3 souls and 6 spirits, right? Ha ha ha. Daoist sorcerer laughed and said, speaking of this, you should thank I properly. Tell me in detail, Daoist sorcerer. Xiaohua still didn't understand. Daoist sorcerer explained, do you still remember when you took Changyu as your disciple under Yaotai Mountain? Of course. Xiaohua thought for a moment and still didn't understand. What's so strange about it? What does this have to do with you? That day, you discovered that Changyu's cultivation method was changed by a Confucian cultivator, right? Yes. Xiaohua nodded matter-of-factly. At that time, I changed the cultivation method and passed it to him. At this point, Xiaohua slapped his forehead and came to a realization. That's right, that cultivation method wasn't changed by I myself. It was changed by Daoist Thunderbolt. Yes. The cultivation method was changed by Daoist Thunderbolt, but the original cultivation method had a heavy impact on the Dao Foundation. If he didn't cultivate it again, it was impossible to reach the body integration realm. Daoist Thunderbolt thought for a long time and felt that changing the Dao sect's Dharma spells only treated the symptoms but not the root cause. Therefore, he asked I to change it, hoping that the soul spell could solve the root cause. I added some soul cultivation content in this cultivation method. Oh, this soul cultivation content is similar to the remnant copy of the primordial spirit that Taoist Thunderbolt obtained before. Chang Yu was probably very lucky. When he cultivated the cultivation method, he was proficient in this part of the soul spell. When he sacrificially refined the Dharma treasure, he used this part of the divine ability and placed a part of his primordial spirit in his natal Dharma treasure. Therefore, when Chang Yu self-destructed, he must have thought of hiding his primordial spirit in his natal Dharma treasure. Taoist sorcerer explained, of course, Chang Yu's half-baked method of placing his primordial spirit was not enough to preserve his primordial spirit. However, the Dharma treasure that Taoist Thunderbolt gave him was not ordinary. It was an original Dharma treasure in Taoist Thunderbolt space. There was another universe inside that could temporarily preserve his primordial spirit. In addition, Chang Yu died not long ago, so Taoist Qing Su didn't have time to sacrifice himself. This allowed Chang Yu's 3 souls and 6 spirits to be preserved. Chapter 44-35. Good boy, good boy. Xiao Hua clapped and laughed. Chang Yu must be a loyal and righteous person. Otherwise, how could the heavenly Tao be so kind to him? Although he has cultivated to the nascent soul realm, his future is limited. Now that his fate with this world has been severed, his soul has been preserved, and he has the method of entrusting his primordial spirit, so his memories of this life should be preserved. From now on, he will be reborn in the Xinhua continent, similar to the Buddhist sect's reincarnation. From now on, his cultivation path will be smooth. Even if he can't preserve his memories and cultivation techniques on the Xinhua continent, he will have a better future than he does now. Taoist Witch agreed. That's right, that's right. Xiao Hua nodded and bowed. I thank you on behalf of Chang Yu. If you hadn't arrived in time, his soul would have dissipated in the air after a while. He wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. You're welcome. Taoist Witch returned the greeting. Your disciple is also I's disciple. What's there to thank me for? However, Chang Yu's 3 souls and 6 spirits are already damaged and need to be repaired on the underworld fruit tree. I can't ask him more. Otherwise, the truth of the matter would be easily known. The so-called truth of the matter is really not worth mentioning compared to Chang Yu's matter. Xiao Hua laughed. Since I have already been alerted, the truth will appear sooner or later. You should go back and rest first. Alright, I will take my leave. Taoist Witch cupped his hands and returned to the space. Xiao Hua stood there and looked into the distance. The smile in his eyes slowly disappeared, and a faint frost hung on his face. He snorted coldly. At any time, a choice means a loss, and different choices mean different losses. Since you have made a choice, what you have lost has become reality. After saying that, Xiao Hua didn't put the 2 little ones into the space. He moved his body and headed east. After a few hours, the sky was bright. However, there wasn't much of a difference between night and day in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. The sky was filled with stars, and all of them were clamoring to compete with the sun. After an entire day, the sun very uninterestedly set from the east to the west. If someone didn't look directly at the sky, they wouldn't be able to see the sun's shadow. This situation lasted for 81 days and nights. Then, the curtains slowly came to an end. The starry sky dimmed once more, and the starlight gradually dimmed. At this point, the boundlessly jubilant Thousand Beasts sacred realm finally fell silent again. The demons who had benefited all went into seclusion to refine the power of the stars and moons that could only be obtained in 100 or even 1,000 years. What was special was that the star power that the Phoenix Parasol drew upon was extremely pure and of extremely high quality. It was extremely beneficial for many demons to break through their bottlenecks. This starlight banquet directly caused the overall strength of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm to increase. Xiaofan did not care about this star-moon banquet. He knew in his heart that no matter how much the demon race of the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm benefited, the biggest winner was still Feng Wu of the Great Sage Temple. He only flew towards the east of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm to search for traces of the Bright Moon Palace. Although Ying Bo of the Continuous Merchant Alliance had received Dou Shanjun's message and even received some information about Jai Xing Lu, the Continuous Merchant Alliance was too inexperienced after all. They did not know the specific time and location of the Star Moon Palace's appearance. What made Xiaofan even more puzzled was that there were some Jai Xing Lu in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. However, for some reason, these Jai Xing Lu had all disappeared in the past 100 years. The Continuous Merchant Alliance's ability was not enough to find the reason for the disappearance. However, Xiaofan did not particularly care. After all, other than the demon race, there were only humans who coveted the opportunities of the Star Moon Palace. As long as he went to the east of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and saw a human, wouldn't he just need to ask around and find out? Xiaofan did not believe that with his status as a human Mahayana realm cultivator, he could not even find out this information. Moreover, Xiaofan believed that Jai Xing Lu would have some arrangements in the east of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. Dou Shanjun alone could give the jade eyes to Ying Bo in advance. How could he not have predicted his arrival? Unfortunately, Xiaofan still underestimated the vastness of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. He had been flying towards the east for dozens of days and saw the demon realms below him one after another. Some were continuous mountains, some were crisscrossing paths, some were deep ravines, and some were filled with lakes. He did not see anything special. He also encountered many demon races. There were great demons, demon kings, sun devourer, and heaven devourer. However, these demon races did not know about the Star Moon Palace, nor did they know where Jai Xing Lu was. On this day, they arrived at another place with water. This swamp was slightly different from what Xiaofan had seen previously. Not only was this swamp huge, but even though he did not release his divine thought, he could not see the edge of this swamp. Moreover, there were many rivers on the left side of the swamp. These rivers were like jade ribbons that wrapped around the swamp. Many water races lived in these rivers. Occasionally, there would be some water races that had gained sentience and would fight in groups. Looking at the many rivers, he saw that they all originated from a mountain range thousands of miles away from the swamp. This mountain range was also very tall. The mountain peaks that stretched for thousands of miles were covered in white snow. Many thin streams were formed from the mountain range and slowly flowed down. When they converged into a river, they flowed through the plains at the foot of the mountain and became a majestic river. These hundreds of thousands of rivers strangely surrounded the entire swamp, and the river water flowed into it continuously. There were many islands in the swamp. Some were several acres in size, while others were several miles in size. The islands were either rugged like rocks or lush like forests. Occasionally, there were flocks of water birds flying above the swamp. There were also schools of fish swimming on the surface of the water. Although there wasn't the fragrance of fish and rice, Xiaofan couldn't help but slow down when his gaze swept across the lake and mountain scenery. However, just as Xiaofan flew into the swamp, between the swamp and the snowy mountain range in the distance, boom boom. A series of explosions suddenly sounded. Then, he saw a light that soared into the sky, illuminating the already dim sky. The Thousand Demons Sacred Realm was not like the hidden immortal continent, nor was it like the Western Paradise. Ordinary fights between the demon race could be found everywhere. During the period when Feng Wu attracted the power of 10,000 stars, all the demon race were focused on absorbing the power of the stars and did not have time to fight. Then, Xiaofan flew in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. Other than the beautiful scenery, what he saw was bloody fights. Compared to the time when Xiaofan followed Shui Mingzi and the others to Bai Qingyu, they encountered a lot more killing. Xiaohua didn't pay any attention to the fights between the demon race unless he saw that a demon race member really wanted to perish together with him. Only then would Xiaohua release his aura to disperse the demon race member. The rest would just fly past him. However, when this light landed in Xiaohua's eyes, it was so familiar. Xiaohua could not help but chuckle. Previously, I was talking to Zhai Xingzi about the 4 joys of a Confucian cultivator's life. Today, I met an old friend in a foreign land. It's really interesting. However, when he released his divine sense and saw the situation in the distance, he could not help but be stunned again. He almost said to himself in surprise, "Oh. She. How could she be here?" Thousands of miles away, it was where several rivers intersected. These rivers were like ancient trees in a dense forest, entangled together. In the several hundred acres of water area, there were dozens of tributaries that sometimes flowed to the west and sometimes to the north. It was impossible to distinguish which tributary flew out from which river. In the sky above this water area, there were 3 balls of holy light that kept churning. Among these 3 balls of light, there were 2 big ones and 1 small one. The big one was several hundred zhang in size, and the small one was only several hundred zhang in size. Regardless of the size, these balls of light were different from the light of the moon and stars. They were abnormally pure. Moreover, every strand of light from these balls of light would send out strands of awe-inspiring qi in the air. A kind of feeling that made one's heart calm involuntarily arose. Looking inside the balls of light, there were 3 light beasts with dragon heads, qilin bodies, cow hooves, and lion-like tails. Weren't they the ones Xiaohua met in the Bronze Pillar country in his early years? The male and female light beasts in the balls of light were no different from before. The light beast's cub was 1 size bigger. Below their feet, there were many clouds floating in the air. These clouds changed from time to time. Gold rui, silver rui, dragon balls, and gold ingots appeared as if they were real, appearing and disappearing in the sky. At this time, the 3 light beasts were standing in the air and roaring. Although the pure brilliance made one feel at ease, the brilliance was like a flame rolling in the sky, revealing the anger of the 3 light beasts. Several li in front of the light beasts' heads, there was a hawk owl thousands of zhang in size, flapping its wings and coldly looking at them. Wasn't this the venerable master in 9 firmaments that Xiaohua met that day? However, at this time, venerable master in 9 firmaments had already transformed into a hawk owl. The hawk owl's body was huge, and its feathers were like iron. Waves of demonic qi overflowed from the gaps of its feathers, spreading in all directions. The faint power of the moon and stars also flashed around the hawk owl's body. It was indescribably valiant, and it was definitely not the appearance Xiaohua saw that day. Below the hawk owl, above the water, there was a catfish thousands of zhang in size. It also emitted a dense demonic qi, twisting its huge demonic body at low altitude. The surface of the catfish's body was not covered with ordinary scales. As its demonic body swayed, waves of ripples flowed on the surface of its body. Occasionally, the demonic qi would disperse, and a layer of glossy and sinister black light would be reflected in the dusk along with the ripples. Moreover, when the catfish flapped its huge tail, there was a faint rumbling sound at low altitude. The water below the catfish's body also had waves of several zhang in size. Although there were only 3 light beasts, the hawk owl and the catfish were not the only ones. Behind the 2 demonic beasts, there were thousands of flying demonic beasts and water demonic beasts, holding various demonic artifacts in their hands. They rode demonic clouds and scattered in the air and water. Their gazes all fell on the light beasts, and there was no fear in their eyes. Chapter 44-36. Light Beast. The sparrow hawk flapped its wings, causing the wind to howl. It seemed to be demonstrating and encouraging. Its slightly hoarse voice sounded in the wind, "Don't go too far. Back then, I did offend you and took your child away. But I had my reasons. As soon as I had the chance to return to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, I immediately asked a familiar great demon to go to the light demon realm to plead for mercy. Not only did you not accept my apology, but you also injured that great demon, causing me to compensate him with a lot of things. After that, I sent my subordinates to the light demon realm many times to offer things, just to get your forgiveness. But not only did you not accept the things, you even killed my subordinates. Did I think that I couldn't get your forgiveness even if I compromised? Now that you've chased me to the water wave demon realm, do you really want to kill all of us without leaving a trace of mercy? Ayo. The huge catfish also cried from below, Light Beast, listen to me. We did offend you back then. But think about it, how many people in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm would be willing to offend you? Why did we have to find trouble with you? We were forced into a dead end, so we had no choice but to take the risk. Besides, your little brat was captured by us, and we served him carefully. We didn't abuse him, nor did we offer him to the Demon King. Think about it, if he wasn't in our hands, but in the hands of humans or other demon clans, would he still be alive? Roar. The light beast roared. Its appearance changed, and it said coldly, those who humiliate us light beasts must be killed. Humph. The other light beast cried out in the distance, it's not wrong for you to want to get out of this predicament. But you can think of your own way. Why do you have to use our lives as a bargaining chip? And you knew that we were seriously injured, but you still set up an ambush to lure us into a trap. How can a few things and an apology make up for such sinister intentions? Kill. The light beast roared and stomped its front hooves forward. The cloud of gold and agate immediately emitted a murderous aura. Flames gushed out from the light beast and rushed towards Catfish. At this moment, Hawk Owl anxiously shouted, wait, the light beast smiled coldly. The light sword was flashing under his feet. He said, Master Jiao Shao, do you have anything else to say? To tell you the truth, even if you can make Tai Shu blossom today, this old man will not let you go. Hawk Owl seemed to be stalling for time. He screamed, it's just a life and death struggle. What's so great about that? I just want to ask you a question. Speak. The light beast said coldly. Light beast, do you know who Ding Buxing of your light beast clan is? It's because you guys are too stubborn and don't know how to be flexible. As long as you set your mind on something, you'll definitely do it. Yan Shao said, with your personality, who knows how many demons you've offended in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm? Back then, wasn't that why you were injured? Today, it's time for us to die, so we're not afraid of offending you. If you think these words have any value, why don't you start from today and shut up? The light beast roared and shouted, as long as there's light, there's no fear of darkness. As long as there's justice, there's no fear of evil. If we live in darkness, what's the point of talking about light? If this old man tolerates your ugliness, how can this old man be called the light beast? Although we light beasts don't have many clansmen, there's justice in heaven and earth. My light beast clan won't go extinct. That's because, no matter how dark the world is, light will always exist. After it finished speaking, the light beast let out a loud roar, and its entire body shone brightly. Circles of heart-shaped light emerged from the light beast's body and spread out in all directions. In just a short moment, the space within a few dozen miles was filled with a pure and holy energy. When the light landed on Yan Shao and Catfish's bodies, it emitted a sizzling sound. The black flames and demonic chi around the two demons were mostly wiped out by this light. Not only that, the light penetrated the black flames and pierced into the two demons' bodies like needles. Catfish's shiny body actually produced clusters of light spots. Roar. The two demons seemed to be in pain. They twisted their bodies and roared loudly. The water under Catfish's body surged up to 100 feet high wave. Ha ha ha. The light beast laughed loudly. Did you see that? How can light coexist with darkness? While laughing, the light beast suddenly kicked out the bull leg that had been brewing for a long time. Woo! Amidst the whistling of the wind, the auspicious cloud mixed with the beam of light transformed into a huge shadow and fell towards Catfish. Wherever the cloud passed, layers of space would crack. Before the shadow could get close to Catfish, the surface of Catfish's body began to tremble violently. Circles of ripples began to spread out from the surface of Catfish's body. Damn it! Seeing that the light beast was so powerful after its injury was healed, and that just a casual stomp of its hoof was already so powerful, far beyond its expectation, Catfish couldn't help but curse inwardly. Its huge monster body swayed, and its tail, which was even bigger than a mountain, appeared in front of Catfish from a low altitude. Boom! The shadow of the light beast's hoof stomped on Catfish's tail, and in the midst of a huge explosion, the shadow of the light hoof was shattered. The auspicious clouds turned into countless ingots and scattered in the air, and the light of the light beast disappeared along with the ingots. Ah! It seemed that Catfish had the upper hand, but then he roared again. Because where the shadow of light disappeared, a huge mark of light was imprinted on Catfish's tail. This mark seemed to be engraved on his tail. Not only was it unusually clear, but it was also seeping into Catfish's body. The demon chi on Catfish's body sizzled and disappeared rapidly. A faint blood-red light also rose from the mark. Unfortunately, Hawk Owl had no time to care about Catfish. The moment the light beast stepped out of the shadow of the light hoof, he opened his mouth. Woo! A beam of light more than 10 feet in size shot out from his mouth and rushed towards Hawk Owl. This beam of light was even more ferocious than the light hoof. Wherever it went, the space would shatter. Moreover, where the space shattered, a lot of noble chi would fall into the beam of light. Before the beam of light even reached Hawk Owl, the feathers on his body had already begun to stand up. Caw! Hawk Owl let out a sharp cry and spat out demon chi from his mouth. His wings flapped, and pitch-black lightning also surged towards the beam of light. Puff puff puff. A series of muffled sounds rang out in the air. When the beam of light fell into the demon chi and lightning, it directly pierced through them like a hot knife through butter. Furthermore, the beam of light didn't slow down at all. It hit Hawk Owl and caused him to stagger. Several of his feathers fluttered in the air, making him look rather miserable. Humph! Seeing that the two demon beasts were unable to withstand a mere probing attack, the light beast snorted coldly. Back then, you took advantage of this old man's heavy injuries to scheme and humiliate this old man. Today, this old man will show you the power of this light beast. As it spoke, the light beast's horn began to produce bright and dark runes. These runes began to attract a boundless amount of righteous chi. When the righteous chi descended, many beautiful syllables began to appear in the air. Then, the light beast's body flashed, and like a meteor, it pounced towards the sparrow hawk. Damn it! Hawk Owl cursed under his breath. The demon chi around his body became even denser. Following which, he flapped his wings and countless stars and moon energy fell from the sky. Caw! Hawk Owl let out another long cry, and a demon rune several feet in size appeared between his eyebrows. Just as this demon rune appeared, boom! A beam of moonlight and starlight crashed into it. The demon rune also shone brightly and turned into a layer of starlight that fell on Hawk Owl's body. The starlight sank into the demon chi, and the demon chi around Hawk Owl's body suddenly tumbled. Starting from the top of his head, all the demon chi mixed with the moonlight turned into a pitch-black demon armor that protected his body. In the span of a few breaths after the demon armor was formed, the radiant beast's dragon horn, which carried a majestic aura, passed through space and landed in front of the sparrow hawk. Seeing that there was no way for the sparrow hawk to dodge, the sparrow hawk decided to face the attack head-on. Boom boom boom. The dragon horns hit the demon armor, and with a loud bang, the demon armor broke inch by inch, turning into fist-sized demon runes. These demon runes were also destroyed by the light beast's light runes. Not only was the demon armor destroyed, but the feathers below were also shot off. While Hawkowl's body was flipped over, a light imprint that was more than 10 feet in size was engraved on his already exposed pitch-black demon body. Caw! Hawkowl let out another cry, and like Catfish, his body began to tremble like a sieve. Kill! The other light beast saw that it had gained the upper hand and roared. Its body flew behind Catfish and Hawkowl. Seeing the light beast move, the light beast's cub hurriedly jumped onto the light beast's back. Seeing the light beast's attack, the demon race of the Water Wave Demon Realm were very afraid, but they didn't dare to escape. They could only brace themselves and wave their demon weapons to meet the light beast's attack. However, even Hawkowl and Catfish couldn't resist the light beast's light beam, so how could these little demons resist it? When the light beam fell, some of the demon race's demon weapons were destroyed, and some of the demon race were killed. Light beast! Hawkowl shouted, "Do you really want to force us to fight to the death?" Fight to the death? The light beast sneered, "You really know how to dream. You don't have the strength to fight to the death. You only have the strength of the moon-picking realm. If it wasn't for the fact that I have a grudge against you, I definitely wouldn't be bothered to make a move on you." Buzz buzz. As the light beast's voice fell, Hawkowl and Catfish's bodies emitted a roaring sound at the same time. Thick demon chi gushed out from all parts of their bodies, and this demon chi was slightly different from before. Not only was the color darker, there were even some faint traces of blood in it, and part of the demon chi could even be turned into liquid. Under the demon chi, the light imprint on the two demons' bodies was washed away. Even the faces of the two demons looked ferocious in this demon chi. Chapter 44-37. Oh! This demonic aura is a little strange. The light beast's eyes narrowed slightly. While he was thinking to himself, his body emitted a dazzling light as he rushed toward Hawkowl. At this moment, Hawkowl and Catfish opened their mouths at the same time. 9 pitch-black stone tablets rushed out from their mouths. They were the 9 dragon tablets that had previously suppressed the light beast's infant. The power of these 9 dragon tablets was even stronger than before. As soon as they fell into the air, they immediately let out a huge roar. Boom boom boom. Black demonic aura gushed out from the tablets. This demonic aura condensed into 9 ferocious dragon children. Not only did their ferocious aura soar to the sky, but they also shrouded an area of dozens of miles. Kill! Hawkowl and Catfish roared at the same time. Their demonic bodies shrunk by 30%. Waves of dense demonic aura guided the pillars of light into the 9 dragon tablets. The 9 dragon children's bodies grew bigger and bigger. Their faces were also unusually ferocious. They roared and pounced toward the light beast. The light beast's light that Hawkowl and Catfish were so afraid of was actually devoured by the 9 dragon children. Huh! Seeing that it was the 9 dragon tablets again, the light beast was not afraid at all. He laughed and said, "You two reckless things. This is the dragon weapon of the Dragon Palace. How can you activate it? That day when I was seriously injured, the 9 dragon tablets could not do anything to me. How can you trap me now?" The moment the light beast finished speaking, it noticed that he was different from the previous time. He did not activate the heart-shaped brilliance. Instead, he controlled the Qilin-like demon body and twisted like a dragon body. The huge scales once again emitted a dark green brilliance. When the black energy of the 9 suns dragon tablet fell, a light pillar shot out from each of the scales. These light pillars charged into the black energy of the 9 suns dragon tablet and instantly pierced thousands of holes into the 9 sons of the dragon clan. Ao ao. The 9 dragon children roared in a low voice. However, their bodies became dimmer and dimmer. More than half of their ferocious aura was destroyed. Roar. The light beast let out another loud roar. Its body did not move as it spat out a ray of light toward one of the 9 dragon tablets. This ray of light was not considered dazzling. However, when it landed on the black aura, it had already destroyed the black aura that had been agglomerated. When the ray of light struck the dragon tablet, a loud bang sounded. The black aura on the dragon tablet was completely swept away, revealing a pitch-black dragon tablet. At this moment, the dragon runes engraved on the surface of the dragon tablet revealed a solemn, vast, and majestic aura. Looking at the dragon steel tumbling in the air, the light beast said coldly, "Despicable thing, even if you have the dragon steel, you can't do anything noble. This dragon steel is a stain on the East Sea Dragon Palace compared to what you have refined." As he spoke, runes appeared on the light beast's dragon horns, and its figure charged towards the flaw in the 9 Suns dragon steel, preparing to kill Sparrow Hawk. At this moment, an arrogant voice suddenly sounded in the distant sky, "Hee, Sparrow Hawk and Catfish have the 9 Suns dragon steel. Naturally, they are not your opponent, but what if I take it?" "Who?" The light beast was stunned. The light around its body immediately converged as it turned its head to look at the source of the voice. However, it saw that in the sky above the 9 Suns dragon steel, there were already layers of spatial ripples, and a powerful aura came out from the ripples. At the same time, clusters of black light shadows like small snakes also rushed out in all directions along with this aura. Dragon Clan? Feeling a somewhat familiar aura, the light beast was a little stunned. He whispered and roared at the light beast who was killing the water tribe in the water wave demon realm in the distance. Swoosh swoosh. Without waiting for the light beast's loud roar to land, the sky seemed to be boiling. Like a flood, black dragon patterns emerged from the light shadow and surged towards the 9 Suns dragon steels in the sky that had already dimmed with black energy. Boom boom boom. The dragon runes almost ignored the spatial distance and fell on the 9 Suns dragon steel. The 9 Suns dragon steel let out a different roar from before. The previous sound was purely the roar of the dragon weapon, but this roar was like a dragon's roar. Along with this dragon's roar, another dragon's roar that shook the wilderness came from the space. The light shadows in the sky shattered, and a pitch-black dragon flew out with bared fangs and brandished claws. As soon as this black dragon appeared, its dragon claws grabbed at the light beast. A faint brilliance appeared on the dragon claws, and a weak fluctuation fell on the 9 Suns dragon steel through the space. The 9 Suns dragon steel that was originally emitting a dragon's roar shook again. Layers of different fluctuations were emitted from it at the same time, completely sealing the space that originally had some flaws. Moreover, the dragon runes on the dragon steel began to float, flowing on the surface of the dragon steel. In just a moment, the 9 Suns dragon steel let out a crisp sound at the same time. Ka. Like the sound of a shell breaking, the dragon steel turned into the 9 Suns of the Dragon Clan and flew in the air. The 9 Suns formed by the dragon steel looked no different from ordinary Dragon Clan. Not only were their faces ferocious, but their auras were also imposing. Even the dragon aura on their bodies was exactly the same. Woo! Seeing the dragon steel turn into suns, demon monarch Kwang Chong let out a sinister laugh. He opened his mouth, and several dragon breaths fell. The 9 Suns became even more ferocious after receiving the dragon breaths. They roared and pounced at the light beast. Greetings to demon monarch Kwang Chong. Seeing the dragon clan appear and activate the 9 Suns dragon steel, Hawk Owl and Catfish both let out a sigh of relief. They hurriedly retreated, far away from the light beast, and shouted, "Fortunately, I didn't fail my mission and lured the light beast here, ha ha ha." The dragon clan laughed loudly. The dragon aura around him mixed with black flames seemed to be able to tear the sky apart. You don't have to say any more. Since you were able to lure the light beast here, I won't pursue the crime of stealing the 9 Suns Dragon's steel. I'll also bestow this water ripple demon realm to you. In the future, you can freely enter and exit the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm. Yes, yes. Thank you, Demon Monarch Quang Chong. When Hawk Owl and Catfish heard this, they couldn't help but be overjoyed. They shouted again, we will definitely help my king capture this light beast. I already know of your loyalty. The Dragon Clan laughed loudly. However, your strength is really not enough. It's better to retreat to the side. Yes. Although Hawk Owl and Catfish didn't understand why Demon Monarch Quang Chong came alone, they didn't dare to ask anything. They activated their demon bodies to escape. Where do you think you're going? When Demon Monarch Quang Chong appeared, the female light beast that was attacking the Water Clan had already sensed that something was amiss. She brought the young light beasts and was about to fly over to rendezvous with the male light beast. However, just as she was flying, Demon Monarch Quang Chong had already activated the 9 Suns Dragon Steel to trap the light beast inside. How could the female light beast let Hawk Owl and Catfish escape in her rage? She abandoned the Water Clan and pounced towards Hawk Owl and Catfish. Clearly, she wanted to capture the 2 demons as bargaining chips. Kill. Hawk Owl and Catfish were naturally no match for the female light beast. If they went first, it was purely to alert Demon Monarch Quang Chong. However, since the female light beast was attacking, they couldn't avoid it. The 2 demons roared angrily and activated their demon clouds to meet the female light beast from 2 different directions. It was also at this moment that several thin threads suddenly appeared in the space behind the female light beast. These thin threads were almost transparent, and they were not obvious in the somewhat dusky sky. However, these thin threads were very strange. Wherever the light beast's light reached, the space would be swept clean, and not even dust could fall. However, under the illumination of the light, these thin threads didn't reflect any brilliance. Instead, they floated down. What was special was that these thin threads didn't land on the female light beast, but on the young light beast on the female light beast's back. At this moment, the young light beast was gnashing its teeth and cheering for the female light beast. Clearly, it had suffered greatly at the hands of Hawk Owl and Catfish and wanted its mother to avenge it. Therefore, it didn't notice the thin threads landing at all. The thin threads looked like they were landing leisurely, but in reality, their speed was extremely fast. Just as the female light beast raised her head and was about to spit out a light beam, the first strand of thin threads had already wrapped around the young light beast's back. Roar! The female light beast spat out a light beam from her mouth, carrying the momentum of killing the Water Clan. Woo! Catfish didn't dare to be negligent. It also opened its mouth and a pitch-black water beam surged towards the female light beast even more violently than the light beam. However, where the light beam landed, the pitch-black water beam was completely destroyed, and the light beam didn't slow down at all as it hit Catfish's body. Puff! With a muffled sound, the light beam struck Catfish's body, creating a dent that was at least several hundred feet in size. In the dent, countless demon chi condensed into a whirlpool to resist the light beam. Under the whirlpool, many strange demon runes appeared under the trembling skin of Catfish. While the demon runes drew the power of the stars and moon to resist the light beam, many of the light beams in the light beam were scattered by the thick layer of fat on Catfish's body. Although Catfish's huge body was tumbling at a low altitude, falling straight down for several miles, and even smashing out a large hole in the water with its tail, he was still able to fend off the murderous beam of light. Humph! The female light beast snorted coldly and lowered her head again. A ripple appeared on her curved dragon horn, and a thunderbolt that tore the void apart gradually appeared. Roar! Just as the female light beast was about to kill, the young light beast suddenly howled. The female light beast was shocked. How could she still care about killing the 2 demon clan members? She hurriedly turned her head to look at the young light beast. When she saw the young light beast's condition, not only was she shocked, but her eyes were also filled with fear and regret. At this time, there were more than a dozen cracks on the little light beast's back, and within these cracks, there were almost colorless light flashing. Looking at the sky above the little light beast, there were more than a dozen thin threads floating down. Child. Seeing that the young light beast didn't want to cry out in pain, but still couldn't help but cry out, the female light beast couldn't help but let out a low cry. How could she not know that these thin threads had already wrapped around the young light beast, and in order not to disturb her, the young light beast didn't want to cry out. Roar. The young light beast was still howling, and his eyes were filled with pain and grievance. It seemed that he didn't want to cry out. Mother, these things are really strange. This boy doesn't know when they fell. Chapter 44-38. The female light beast's eyes turned blood red, and the fear in her eyes disappeared. She opened her mouth, and with a roar, a blood-red beam of light shot out, hitting the threads falling from the sky. Not only did the beam of light contain light, but it also contained blood-red threads and lightning. Where the beam of light landed, most of the threads were destroyed and turned into nothingness. Only a small portion was blown away and didn't break. However, the moment the beam of light appeared, it was like poking a hornet's nest. The threads that covered the sky began to fall. And these threads were different from before. Some carried black chi, some carried blood-red light, and some were even multicolored. Damn it! Xiaofan Spider King! The female light beast roared angrily, and the space within dozens of miles shook. You're also a sun-devouring realm demon king. How can you attack a child with intelligence? Woo-woo. A gust of wind whistled from where the silk landed, and a large amount of devil chi descended from the sky. Within the devil chi, several spider legs that were dozens of feet long stretched out, and then a huge spider that was hundreds of feet long and flashing with a gorgeous brilliance stretched out its head. This spider's abdomen was spitting out a large amount of spider silk, which poured down like a torrent of water. Io, yes, you're right. How can this king attack a child? This king only wanted to kill you. Who knew that this child was on your back? How could I know? Could this be the legendary accidental injury? The Xiaofan Spider King's voice was a bit shrill, and there was a bit of cadence. Besides, who knows if you're trying to push this little light beast out to block me? Oh, since you've said it, this king won't care what your intentions are. As the Xiaofan Spider King spoke, its abdomen flashed with light again. The thin thread that was originally embedded in the little light beast's body suddenly retracted. Ah! The little light beast cried out in pain. Because the thin thread had dragged the little light beast's body and cut it even more, the little light beast couldn't help but fly up, roar. As if the father and son were connected, the little light beast's cries attracted the attention of the male light beast in the nine-child dragon steel. The male light beast roared, and the nine-child dragon steel that was pouncing towards him suddenly stopped in midair. Then, a heart-shaped light rushed out. Not only did it push the nine-child dragon steel 100 feet away, it even tore open space, revealing a gap. Boom! As the gap appeared, the male light beast went into a frenzy as if it didn't care about its life anymore. Its dragon horn flashed and pierced into the gap, and the scales on its body glowed with blood-red light. Countless amounts of righteous chi descended and pierced through the gap. A small portion of the male light beast's body peeked out from the dragon chi of the Nine Suns dragon steel. Unfortunately, before the male light beast could escape from the Nine Suns dragon steel, demon monarch Conchong raised her head and let out a dragon roar. She turned into a black thunderbolt and charged down. Lightning also appeared from her dragon horns and she attacked the light beast like lightning. Roar! The light beast was inside the nine-child dragon steel and couldn't dodge. Seeing demon monarch Gong Chang's momentum, he had no choice but to let out an angry roar and charged forward. Hong! The thunderbolts from the two dragon horns collided. Indescribable arcs of light and arcs of lightning burst forth. Explosions rang out in the air several dozen li to the left. Spatial cracks of various sizes crisscrossed one after another. Even the 9 dragon steels were caught in this wave of air. They were tossing and turning extremely. 4 or 5 of them could no longer take shape. Where the light landed, they still turned into stone steels. Looking at the male light beast, his huge body was flipped over and the light around him suddenly dimmed. The dragon horn on his forehead was a bit crooked and strands of blood-colored light came from the root of the dragon horn. Opposite the light beast was demon monarch Harp Chong. The black dragon's body made a turn in midair and immediately stabilized. The dragon chi around its body flourished, and its dragon claws grabbed downwards. The 9 suns dragon steel once again let out a rumbling sound, enveloping the light beast. This time, the 9-child dragon steel spun like crazy and a demon formation emitting the aura of the dragon clan appeared. Seeing the demon monarch gradually shrink under demon monarch Gong Chang's control, how could the female light beast not know demon monarch Gong Chang's plan? She looked at the 9-child dragon steel with some difficulty and then looked at the small light beast trapped by the spider silk. In just a moment, she made a decision. She raised her head to the sky and let out a long neigh. Then, the scales all over her body began to emit wisps of fire. Those wisps of fire were also transparent like colored glass. She raised her leg again, and under her hooves, the clouds of thousands of golden pearls suddenly converged into her body. Vortexes were formed in the air, and the outline of a tunnel that was hundreds of feet wide was instantly revealed. This outline also had wisps of fire emitting from it. Before the female light beast stepped into the outline of the tunnel, the Qilan Spider King laughed loudly. Is this the legendary reenactment? Last time, you relied on this technique to escape from this king. After 200 years, will this king still let you succeed? Following the Qilan Spider King's laughter, the 8 spider legs on both sides of its huge spider body flashed and extended into the void. Immediately after, on the left side of the outline of the tunnel, the 8 spider legs revealed sharp spikes. It was precisely the wisps of fire that landed on the outline. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A series of sounds rang out. The spikes that pierced the wisps of fire wildly surged with demonic aura. When the demonic aura crashed into the wisps of fire, there was a loud explosion. The entire outline of the space gradually collapsed and the collapse of the space spread into the tunnel. Not good. This king actually fell into your trap. The Qilan Spider King, who was originally confident of victory, suddenly let out a low roar and flew up into the sky. Unfortunately, before he could fly up, the space below him suddenly tore apart. The explosion of light and demonic aura collided through the void and crashed into the Qilan Spider King. The impact of this explosion was extremely strong. Not only did it cause the Qilan Spider King's abdomen to collapse, it also blew away the wisps of silk that were like flowing water. Naturally, the wisps on the little light beast's body were also blown away. Go! The female light beast let out a low roar and landed below the little light beast. As she shouted, the light around her body shone brightly and her body was about to fly into the distance. Unfortunately, she had only flown a few hundred feet when a brightly colored spike strangely appeared in the void in front of her head and pierced between her eyebrows. The spike was surrounded by demonic aura and even had a trace of netherworld aura. Damn it! The female light beast was clearly caught off guard. Her body quickly dodged and the spike pierced through the light around her body, leaving a deep wound on her forehead. The Qilan Spider King laughed loudly and said, "Do you think you're the only one who's scheming? With this king here, how can you escape this time? Go!" Seeing the Qilan Spider King break through the air again and the web in the air came down like a huge net, the female light beast gritted her teeth and shook her back, causing the little light beast to fall into the air. Then, she lifted her leg and kicked. So. The little light beast immediately broke through the air like a shooting star. The female light beast turned around and blocked the Qilan Spider King's head. The Qilan Spider King was stunned and then laughed coldly, "What a brainless light beast. You've already fallen into this king's hands, do you think your child can escape? Didn't you see the demons in the water wave demon realm? They've already chased over." The female light beast was shocked and released her Yuan Shen. As expected, how could Hawk Owl and Catfish let go of such a good opportunity to claim credit? They had already moved their bodies and chased over. The other demons in the distance who were lucky enough to survive also shouted and flew over. Aoo. Just as the female light beast was distracted, a similarly colorful spike appeared from under her body. With lightning speed, it pierced through the light beast's light and pierced deep into her abdomen. The female light beast screamed in pain. Damn it! While the two Radiance beasts were being suppressed by their mortal enemies, and the little Radiance beast was being chased by demons, the family of three was in dire straits. 100 miles away from the battlefield, a ray of light flashed. Countless inscriptions surged within the light, and when the inscriptions shattered, a beautiful female cultivator emerged from the light. It was none other than Princess Baihua, who was as beautiful as a flower. Princess Hundred Flowers was no longer as frail as she had been before. She raised her hand, and true energy surged out. Just as she was about to raise her hand, a boundless divine will swept out from the distance, covering the entire water region in the blink of an eye. Princess Baihua's expression changed slightly. She hurriedly turned her head, but the clear light in her eyes had yet to be released. Rumble. From where the divine sense came, there was the sound of thunder. The thunder was faster than White Horse fleeting time. Just as the sound was heard, a fist several hundred feet in size flashed with lightning and came through the air. Boom! With a loud sound, it hit the nine-child dragon steel. This method of killing the dragon steel was extremely strange. Whoosh! The nine-child dragon steel couldn't withstand the huge force of the fist and exploded, turning into 9 dim stone steels that scattered in the air. Demon King Conchong was shocked and looked at the huge fist in disbelief. Fear appeared in his eyes. Then, the fist didn't seem to have any intention of retracting. It swayed and smashed towards Demon King Conchong. Demon King Conchong's body swayed and he shouted, Who is this senior? This lowly one is the descendant of the demon race's second sacred mystic armor Pentaceratops. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, the fist had already landed. Amidst the strong wind, Demon Monarch Harppet's demon body was imprisoned. Demon Monarch Harppet's figure swayed rapidly as the dragon chi around him surged like a spring. He wanted to use some means to resist. However, before he could do anything, the fist's wind was extremely fierce. The fist's momentum could tear the void apart. Even though he tried his best to block the fist with his dragon tail, his body was still smashed down by the fist. Not only were the scales on Demon Monarch Conchong's body cracked, even her draconic chi was nearly scattered. Her figure smashed a deep hole in the water on the ground. Chapter 44-39. Hee, how interesting. Seeing this, Princess Baihua withdrew her clear eyes technique and slowly withdrew her aura. She then stared thoughtfully at where the fist came from. Damn it! Seeing Demon Monarch Conchong being knocked down by a fist, how could the Qilan Spider King not know how powerful this newcomer was? He didn't even dare to release his origin sense. Demonic chi surged out of his body and the surrounding sky lit up again. He wanted to use his innate ability to escape. Gotcha! Without waiting for the light to form, several thick bolts of lightning appeared out of thin air and shattered it. Then, the lightning roared like a righteous spear and struck the Qilin Spider King's back. Ah! The Qilin Spider King screamed. Its hard carapace was shattered and waves of demonic qi surged out. Aoo! The male and female light beasts stepped out of the trap and looked at each other in dismay. The two beasts let out a cry and flew towards the little light beast without caring about the battle situation. Shwa! Above the heads of the two beasts, a flat lightning flashed and a tall and thin human figure walked out of the lightning. Wasn't that Xiaohua? You! The male light beast saw Xiaohua's appearance and immediately remembered. However, he opened his mouth and called out, Xiao! Xiao! But even after calling out a few times, he still couldn't call out the name of the human he met more than 200 years ago. Fellow Daoist Xiao. On the contrary, Princess Baihua smiled like 100 flowers blooming. Is this really you? Xiaohua glanced at Princess Baihua with a complicated gaze. He raised his right hand and waved his sleeve, releasing the Divine Power Centipede. As soon as the Divine Power Centipede appeared, its body lit up with golden light. Countless dragon-shaped phantoms rushed out from the golden light. Go, rescue that light beast cub. Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed into the distance. Those two demon beasts were your old enemies. I'll leave them to you. Yes, Master. The Divine Power Centipede responded in a low voice. Multicolored clouds appeared under its feet and it flew into the distance. The male and female light beasts glanced at each other. The female light beast endured her injuries and chased after them. Senior. The Qilin Spider King's body tumbled a few times in the air before he finally stabilized himself. All the ferocity from before had disappeared. He transformed into his human form and respectfully said, "This lowly one is the descendant of the nether demonic dragon spider great saint." This lowly one did not know that the light beast was acquainted with Senior. At this moment, demon monarch Kanchong also flew out of the swamp. He didn't dare to say anything more and also flew before Xiaohua. He transformed into human form and said with a bow, "This little one didn't know that the light beast was old friends with Senior. I have offended Senior before. Please spare my life." Xiaohua had never concealed his strength. His sudden appearance had already displayed the strength of the supreme cultivator of the three continents. Even though Demon Monarch Kanchong and Demon Monarch Qilin Spider could deal with the light beasts with ease, they were merely demon monarchs of Tunri. They were much weaker than Bai Qingyu's Jade Wave. How could they possibly have the intention to resist Xiaohua? Moreover, they also knew that Xiaohua could take their lives with one strike. Since Xiaohua didn't take their lives, he probably wouldn't take their lives again. Xiaohua looked at the two demon monarchs and coldly snorted. He didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he turned to look at Princess Baihua and said with a meaningful smile, "Xine, I really didn't expect that I would meet you again in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm before I went to the Cha Nu Kingdom to taste the daughter tea. Our fate is really not shallow." Princess Baihua pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Isn't that so? In these 200 years, this concubine has been waiting in the Cha Nu Kingdom without seeing you. I just came to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm to look at the scenery after a long period of silence and met you. Didn't this concubine say earlier? My Cha Nu Kingdom not only has the daughter tea, but also many magic tools. When will you return with this concubine? It can't be." Xiaohua also said with a smile, "In these 200 years, if Princess's longing had turned into water, how could you have such cultivation? Back then, when you participated in the auction, you needed this Zhao's protection. Now, you're actually teaching a demon monarch a lesson? If this Xiao didn't see it with his own eyes, how could this Xiao dare to believe it? What's there to not dare to believe?" Back then, a little Daoist cultivator was only barely able to escape because of the light beast's protection. Now, didn't you injure a demon monarch with a single punch? If this concubine didn't see it with her own eyes, how could this concubine dare to believe it? Princess Baihua's sarcastic retort left Xiaohua speechless. Fortunately, the light beast's memory recovered just in time. He exclaimed, "That's right, you're called Xiaohua. 200 years ago, it was you and this old man who saved Lin, But. At this point, he couldn't continue. After all, Xiaohua's strength had increased too quickly. In 200 years, the light beast couldn't imagine that Xiaohua could become a human Mahayana realm cultivator. That's right. It's this Xiao. Xiaohua helplessly rubbed his nose and said with a bitter smile, "If not for fellow immortals' guidance that day, I'm afraid this Xiao wouldn't have been able to reach today's cultivation. Today, this Xiao is here to repay the favor of that day. I don't dare. I don't dare." The light beast was shocked and said anxiously, "That day, it was Senior who saved this junior's youngest son first. The so-called training was just this junior returning Senior's favor." Xiaohua's words were correct. If the light beast hadn't pointed out the training ground of the light beast clan, Xiaohua wouldn't have been able to conceive a baby in the void, and he wouldn't have had such fortuitous encounters in the future. However, the light beast's words were also not wrong. Hawk Owl and Catfish had set up a trap, using the light beast's cub as bait. They wanted to capture the heavily injured light beast, and Xiaohua's righteous actions had also helped the light beast greatly. The light beast had lured Xiaohua into the void and only pointed out the training ground, but didn't provide any more help. It could be said that it had repaid Xiaohua's help. Xiaohua and the light beast didn't owe each other anything. Xiaohua naturally understood that the so-called karma was entangled. Although a cause was a cause could also be an effect could be an effect, but an effect could also be a cause. Cause, effect. Perhaps only the hand of karma could understand it clearly. His cultivation was still shallow, so there was no need to explain it clearly. He smiled and said, "Haha. Light beast, not only did you and I get to know each other, but we also fought side by side against enemies. This Xiao was just passing by today and happened to meet you. I just casually helped. There's no need to say these polite words." Yes. Although the light beast was honest, he also understood that Xiaohua not only hated evil, but also had a magnanimous heart. This was the human he was willing to get close to. Moreover, the light beast knew that Xiaohua, who was now a Mahayana stage human, didn't feel any pressure when facing demon monarch Kanchong and the Qilin Spider King. The other party was just making a move. If the light beast was too polite, it might really offend Xiaohua. He responded, then looked somewhat worriedly in the direction of the little light beast. Although Hawk Owl and Catfish weren't strong, the mother light beast and the little light beast were still heavily injured. As for the divine power centipede, he had seen it at the auction in the past. Its strength couldn't compare to Hawk Owl, so the light beast was somewhat worried. However, when he looked at the sky over there, he was a little dumbfounded. Only 100 kilometers away, the sky was filled with a bloody light. Hawk Owl's monster body had already been split open. Its two huge wings carried half of its monster body, and it slowly drifted down like a fallen leaf. A large amount of blood gushed out from the torn monster body, spraying into the air and dripping to the ground. Looking at the ground again, the catfish had been killed a step earlier. Its incomparably huge body had been neatly split into two halves. Blood that was even more violent than a mountain torrent gushed out, rushing into the river of the swamp, and then surging into the great swamp. Hiss! The light beast was dumbfounded and couldn't help but draw in a breath of cold air. Although he had easily defeated the two monsters, it was extremely difficult to take their lives. The light beast's gaze fell on the divine power centipede that was happily devouring the monster cores of the two monsters in the sky. An incomparably complicated look appeared in his eyes, and he thought to himself, Is this still the little centipede that I looked down on that day? That day, Not only did the light beast look down on the divine power centipede, even Xiaohua, if not for the fact that he had helped at a critical moment, he definitely wouldn't have taken half a glance at him. The light beast retracted his astonished gaze and looked at the mother light beast and the little light beast. At this moment, the two light beasts were slowly flying back, but their bodies were riddled with injuries. Especially the little light beast, its back and abdomen were covered with wounds caused by the Chilan Spider King's spider silk. These wounds flickered with a black aura, which was precisely the opposite of the light beast's brilliance. Not only did the wounds not show any signs of healing, but they were even expanding. Large drops of pus dripped down the little light beast's monster body. Although the mother light beast kept licking with its tongue, and a large amount of light fell from time to time, the little light beast still frowned, as if its heart was in pain. The male light beast's eyes were more concerned than affectionate, and its body didn't move at all. If Xiaohua hadn't appeared today, they probably wouldn't have been able to keep their lives. Although the injuries of the little light beast made its heart ache, it was still better to be alive than dead. Seeing that they were flying closer, the mother light beast didn't dare to be negligent. It flew in front of Xiaohua with the little light beast and spoke in human language, "Junior, thanks Senior for saving our lives." Roar, roar. The little light beast sensibly raised its neck and roared in a low voice to express its gratitude. Xiaohua smiled slightly, raised his hand, and bent his 5 fingers slightly. The black aura in the little light beast's wounds was easily grasped by Xiaohua, and even some of the fine strands that had almost penetrated into the bone marrow were extracted by Xiaohua. Roar, roar. The little light beast was overjoyed. As it roared happily, its whole body shone brightly, and the wounds on its body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Thank you, Senior." The male light beast's heavy heart finally relaxed, and it hurriedly expressed its thanks respectfully. Woo! At this moment, a hurricane rolled up from afar, and the divine power centipede flew over proudly. The dragon aura around its body overflowed, and it actually condensed into a similar dragon shape. Chapter 4440. Seeing the dragon aura approaching, not to mention the 3 light beasts, even demon monarch Kanchong's dragon body shrank back, its dragon horns glowing with vigilance. Just as all the monsters were shocked by the dragon aura, Princess Baihua's surprised voice sounded not far away, "Dragon sacrifice?" Princess Baihua's words struck Xiaohua like a bolt of lightning. Xiaohua's body stiffened in midair. He understood very well that the divine power centipede had not only swallowed a lot of Mo Zhao, but also some dragon corpses and strange insect corpses. In particular, the divine power centipede had swallowed a dragon sacrifice. Therefore, the divine power centipede's dragon aura was very strong, and its body also had dragon breath. In Xiaohua's view, this dragon aura was not so much the dragon aura of the dragon race, but the dragon aura of the dragon sacrifice after it evolved. Of course, only the dragon race could recognize this dragon aura. Ordinary cultivators could not detect anything abnormal. Even ordinary dragons could not know what the dragon aura of the dragon sacrifice was. However, Xiaohua never expected that the princess of the chameleon country, whom he had only met twice in the bronze pillar country, would be able to recognize it. After a while, Xiaohua turned his head with some difficulty and looked at Princess Baihua. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Xine, this Xiao is somewhat ignorant." In this Xiao's view, 200 years is enough for a princess to become a country's ruler. However, 200 years is definitely not enough for a scholar to become a knowledgeable expert with unfathomable cultivation. He. Princess Baihua, who had already become the ruler of the chameleon country, covered her mouth and laughed. She was still as cute as she was 200 years ago. She beamed with joy and said, "Xiaohua, 200 years is not enough for an ordinary person to become an unfathomable expert, but an instant is enough for a person to completely change." Seeing that Princess Baihua did not reveal the truth, Xiaohua could only withdraw his gaze. He waved his hand, and the divine power centipede's body shrank to less than 3 inches and landed in his palm. At this time, the divine power centipede's body emitted a golden light, and that light looked no different from a small dragon. "Little gold, you're quite greedy," Xiaohua said with a smile, but his tone was not reproachful. The Herculean centipede hurriedly replied, "Please forgive me, master. That big bird bullied this little one too much. It almost took this little one's life back then." "Hee, it's fine," Xiaohua said, "this old man just feels that you've eaten a lot. Now that you've become stronger, there's nothing else interesting. Thank you for your praise, master." The Herculean centipede was overjoyed. It shook its head and wagged its tail. Xiaohua put away the Herculean centipede and looked at the 9 children dragon steel in the distance. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. A several hundred feet large light shadow rushed out and landed on the 9 children dragon steel. With a series of crackling sounds, the 9 children dragon steel seemed to have been crushed. The dragon runes on the steel cracked and some dragon blood seeped out. The dragon blood floated on the surface of the dragon tablet and actually gathered into the shape of a dragon, trying its best to resist the light shadow in the space. However, it only lasted for a few breaths. Pa pa pa. A series of explosive sounds rang out, and the dragon blood turned into green smoke and disappeared. Looking at the nearby demon monarch Conchong, his dragon body slightly trembled. Clearly, this 9 children dragon steel was previously refined by him. Although demon monarch Conchong's blood essence was damaged, extreme fear appeared in his eyes. Not only was it because Xiaohua's strength was too strong, but it was also because Xiaohua's method of breaking the 9 children dragon steel's restriction was completely the method of the dragon race. This method. Demon monarch Conchong only looked familiar, but he had no way of knowing how to use it. After breaking the restriction on the 9 children dragon steel, Xiaohua raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. The 9 children dragon steel turned into the size of a palm and fell into his hand. Seeing Xiaohua open his mouth to swallow the 9 children dragon steel, demon monarch Conchong couldn't help but say in a low voice, "Say, Senior, this 9 children dragon steel was bestowed by my clan's dragon sage. If you take it away like this junior won't be able to explain it to the dragon sage." "Humph." Xiaohua coldly snorted and said, "This Xiao is the dragon race's dragon master. Not to mention the dragon weapon in your hand, even if this Xiao wants to take the dragon throne of the 4 seas dragon kings, this Xiao can easily take it. Who dares to say half a word? If you don't believe me, feel free to tell this matter to the black-armored pentaceratops. Just say that this Xiao took it away and have him ask for it from this Xiao." "Dragon? Dragon Master?" Demon monarch Conchong was shocked. Although he didn't quite understand what Xiaohua was saying, it sounded really powerful. He didn't dare to say half a word more. After putting away the 9 children dragon steel, Xiaohua pinched his chin and looked at the 2 demon monarchs, not speaking for a long time. Sensing Xiaohua's gaze sweeping over their bodies, the 2 demon monarchs felt uneasy as if they were sitting on pins and needles. After a while, Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, "Light beast, how do you think these 2 demon monarchs should be dealt with?" The male light beast said, reporting to Senior, "This junior killed a descendant of a Qilan Spider King in his early years. Therefore, the Qilan Spider King has always wanted to avenge his descendant. The last time this junior saw Senior, I was injured by him. Today, this junior was once again injured by him. This can be considered even. If he no longer pursues this matter, this junior also doesn't want to make things difficult for Senior." Of course, of course." Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, that Qilan Spider King hurriedly shouted, "This junior will now swear to Senior that he will no longer dare to find trouble with the light beast in the future." N. Xiaohua's expression didn't change, and he didn't comment. He looked at demon monarch Conchong again and asked, what about him? Demon Monarch Kanchong. The light beast was somewhat hesitant. He looked at the female light beast and the young light beast, and said, "This junior isn't familiar with Demon Monarch Kanchong. I'm afraid that because of Demon Monarch Kanchong and Demon Monarch Kanchong, Demon Monarch Kanchong had the intention to kill this junior. Since Demon Monarch Kanchong and Demon Monarch Kanchong have already been executed, this junior doesn't intend to pursue this matter. After all, in this 1,000 demons sacred realm, there are truly too many demon clans coveting this junior's bloodline. This junior can't eliminate them all. Are these your heartfelt words?" Xiaofan frowned and asked. "Sigh." The light beast sighed and nodded, saying, "These are indeed my heartfelt words. Previously, Demon Monarch Kanchong told this junior that my light beast clan is too upright, and we offended too many demon clans in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Therefore, our descendants are not prosperous, and our clan is not flourishing." And this junior thought about it, and felt that it was somewhat reasonable. This junior once heard humans in the hidden immortal continent say that those who are too rigid are easily broken, and those who are soft are undefeated. This junior should perhaps change a little. Yes, this junior deserves to die. Demon Monarch Kanchong heard and hurriedly shouted. This was all the bewitchment of Demon Monarch Kanchong and Demon Monarch Kanchong. They said that if this junior could obtain the light beast's bloodline, the devil chi in my body could be purified, and thus reach the devouring void realm in one fell swoop. This junior was bewitched, and thus fell into the scheme of those two demon monarchs. Demon Monarch Kanchong and the others pushed all the blame to Demon Monarch Kanchong and Demon Monarch Kanchong, as if he was as pure as the light beast. Xiaofan coldly glanced at him and berated, "Shut up." "Yes." Demon Monarch Kanchong hurriedly responded, but suddenly came to a realization, and hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to say any more. Xiaofan looked at the light beast and said with a smile, "Light beast, actually, you don't have to do this. Light is to bravely move forward and pierce through the darkness. If there is fear in your heart, how can you radiate light?" As for the light beast's situation in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Just as Xiaofan was about to persuade, Princess Baihua suddenly interrupted, "Light beast, if you're willing, I can introduce you to the 1,000 demons sacred realm star-plucking tower. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to go find star-plucking tower." Star-plucking tower? Xiaofan was stunned and looked at Princess Baihua in confusion, thinking to himself, could it be that Zhu Qing has come to the 1,000 demons sacred realm? Star-plucking tower? The light beast was also confused. He looked at Princess Baihua and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, senior, but this junior still doesn't want to be sheltered by the human race's star-plucking tower." "You're wrong." Princess Baihua said with a smile, "Star-plucking tower doesn't only belong to the human race, and you don't even know the meaning of star-plucking tower." Hearing this, a faint smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. He interrupted Princess Baihua and said, "Your Majesty, can you let this Xiao finish speaking?" Go ahead." Princess Baihua replied with a smile. "Light beast, do you know of the 3 demon realms, Bai Qingyu, Sky Concealing Ridge, and Ancient Bell Mountain?" Xiaohua asked. The light beast thought for a moment and nodded. This junior knows of Sky Concealing Ridge. The demon king there seems to be the son of the demon race's first great sage. This junior doesn't know about the other 2. Xiaohua nodded. These 3 demon realms no longer belong to the descendants of those 3 great sages. Demon King Kanchong clearly knew these 3 demon kings. He said in surprise, "Senior, when did this happen?" "Ni Quan and Bai Qing, what happened?" Xiaohua glanced at him and asked, "Could it be that you haven't heard of Qing Bo's banquet?" Demon King Kanchong smiled and said, "Reporting to Senior, Ancient Bell Mountain is very far away. This junior really doesn't know what Qing Bo's banquet is." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "What Qing Bo's banquet is, you will naturally know in the future. What this Xiao wants to say is that these three demon realms now belong to the demon race's seventh great sage. And this seventh great sage is this Xiao's old acquaintance. While speaking, Xiaohua intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Princess Baihua. Sure enough, when Xiaohua mentioned Qingbo's banquet, Princess Baihua didn't look surprised at all. Only when Xiaohua mentioned the seventh great sage did her brows slightly raise, and a strange light appeared in her eyes. Of course, when she noticed Xiaohua's gaze, a smile appeared in her eyes again. Senior actually knows the seventh great sage of my thousand-demon sacred realm? The light beast was extremely surprised, as if he suddenly understood something. Xiaohua nodded and replied, "That's right. The seventh great sage of your demon race is a heaven-defying lightning phoenix. This Xiao is very familiar with him, and this Xiao also knows that Phoenix Sage likes upright and magnanimous demons. He doesn't have any children in the thousand-demon sacred realm. Currently, Ancient Bell Mountain, by Qingyu, and Sky Concealing Ridge don't have any more demons except by Qingyu. If you want, you can go there." Chapter 44-41. Actually, Princess Baihua said, "Light Beast, although your light demon realm is mysterious and ordinary demons can't enter, your light beast clan is too rare. If you can obtain the protection of the Great Sage Temple's seventh Great Sage, who would dare to target your bloodline in the future?" The light beast seemed to be moved, but he was still hesitant and looked at the female light beast. The female light beast said, "Junior thanks Senior for your kindness, but this is a serious matter. Can you let Junior think about it?" "Of course." Xiaohua smiled and took out a beast skin. On it was the symbol of a phoenix spreading its wings. He handed it to the light beast and said, "This is the Phoenix Sage's token. Take it. Whether you are willing or not, there is no harm in paying a visit to the Phoenix Sage. It will be useful to your light beast clan in the future." "Thank you, Senior." The light beast opened his mouth and swallowed the beast skin. He bowed and said. Then, Xiaohua looked at Demon Monarch Kanchong and Qilin Spider King and asked indifferently, "Did you see it?" "Yes, this Junior already knows." Demon Monarch Kanchong and the Qilin Spider Monarch were very adaptable. They hastily replied, "The Radiance Beast has already obtained the protection of the seventh Great Sage. Whoever dares to touch the Radiance Beast will be opposing the seventh Great Sage. Since it is useful, this Xiao won't take your lives for now." Xiaohua nodded. Demon Monarch Kanchong and Qilin Spider King were overjoyed and kowtowed, "This Junior thanks Senior." However, Xiaohua changed the topic, "You can be spared from death, but your crimes cannot be forgiven. This Xiao will give you a task. You can go to the hidden immortal continent." "Senior, please speak." Demon Monarch Kanchong and Qilin Spider King were puzzled and asked respectfully. When Xiaohua told them about the sutra seeking extreme bliss, the two demon monarchs looked at each other. However, they didn't dare to disagree. After bowing, they urged their rolling demon clouds to head to the hidden immortal continent to kill Chun Zong and his disciple. After the two demon monarchs left, the light beast didn't want to stay any longer. After bowing, he urged his cloud to go into the distance. Only Xiaohua and Princess Baihua were left standing in the vast swamp under the nebula. The wind carried water vapor, which gradually filled the air in the night. The moonlight shone on the water vapor. It was truly a scene of ascension to immortality. Princess Baihua looked around and sighed. Someone once said that as long as I was around, he would be willing to stand by the river for 100 days. Nor did they get tired of it. But now, you don't even want to speak after just standing there for a moment. Yes, at that time, he was a wonderful person, and the princess was also a princess. But now, the person had become mysterious, and the princess had become the monarch. Things have changed with the passage of time. That's how it is. Xiaohua naturally recalled his conversation with Princess Baihua back in the Copper Pillar state and sighed as he replied. Not only have things changed with the passage of time, but things have also changed. Princess Baihua looked at Xiaohua with her beautiful eyes and said, speaking of that night in the hidden immortal continent, it was the most unforgettable night in my life. That night, that fearless little Taoist cultivator actually faced the demon race directly. And when the sun rose, that little cultivator actually followed the light beast and left. Do you know how deep of an impression this left on me? I don't know. Xiaohua seemed to be somewhat unromantic as he replied. Princess Baihua didn't care about Xiaohua's attitude and continued to say, since then, I have been thinking for many days and nights, this majestic man. What kind of earth-shattering thing did he do today? How many female cultivators' hearts did he quietly move? But who would have thought that after several hundred years, this majestic man was already so tall that he couldn't be looked up at? He had already stepped on all the obstacles between heaven and earth and stood at the peak of the human world. And behind him, in the shadows, there were countless legends and countless unfathomable secrets. Clap, clap, clap. Xiaohua smiled and clapped. Your Majesty is indeed talented in literature, this Xiao really admires you. Hearing Your Majesty's words, this Xiao suddenly felt that he was a lot taller. However, listening to Your Majesty's meaning, the taller this Xiao is, the more shadows there are behind him? Could it be that in this world, there is a tall person, with a small shadow? 200 years is enough for a Taoist cultivator to cultivate from foundation establishment to heart-stirring, it is also enough for a Confucian cultivator to become a scholar, and it is also possible for a demon to grow from hair loss to wisdom. But, it is absolutely impossible for a Taoist cultivator to go from nascent soul to great ascension. Princess Baihua said seriously, Taoist Master Xiao, could it be that this is not the secret behind you? Your Majesty. Xiaohua laughed and said, 3 continents, 3 rivers and 4 seas, how big is that? How many capable people were there? Your Majesty has never seen it before, but that doesn't mean it is impossible. Isn't this Xiao a very good example? Besides, my Taoist techniques are incomparably profound. Those mysterious cultivation methods have already been annihilated in the river of time along with the destruction of the immortals and Buddhas. No one can guarantee that this Xiao won't obtain this ancient Taoist technique. Impossible. Princess Baihua replied resolutely and decisively, not to mention the ancient times, even the immemorial times, or even the prehistoric times, it is impossible for such a technique to exist. Xiaohua said with a smile, could it be that Your Majesty has been to the prehistoric times? This concubine naturally has not been there. Princess Baihua said with a smile, however, this does not mean that this concubine does not know. Oh, what is the matter with the sutra seeking extreme bliss? The sutra seeking extreme bliss formed by the compromise between Confucian cultivators and Buddhism. Taoist Master Xiao, why are you also interested in meddling? Also, what is the matter with the 7th great sage of the Great Sage Hall? What is the matter with the 10,000 stars transit of the sun a while ago? This concubine still has some clues about the Zhaohua Palace in the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, but this concubine is really confused about all the things that have happened recently. Taoist Master Xiao, can you explain to this concubine? Do these things have anything to do with you? Zhaohua Palace? 10,000 stars transit of the sun? Hearing Princess Baihua's words, Xiaohua's face tightened. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at Princess Baihua and asked word by word, You are Xine? The Princess Baihua whose nickname is Little Lily? The more I listen, the more confused I am. Princess Baihua, how could she know so much? He. Princess Baihua covered her mouth and laughed. This concubine is naturally the former Princess Baihua, but this concubine's nickname is Little Ro. That fateful night. Didn't this concubine already tell you? How could you have forgotten all about it? Since you are little Ro, then can you tell this Xiao that 200 years might not be enough for a Taoist cultivator to go from Yuanying to Mahayana? Xiao Hua looked at Princess Baihua's mere literary master cultivation and a smile appeared in his eyes. He said almost the exact same words back to Princess Baihua. How could a mere literary master safely go from the hidden immortal continent to the thousand-demon sacred realm in 200 years? Furthermore, this woman who looked like she was only at the 4th grade of essence energy actually dared to dream of rescuing the 6th grade essence energy light beast under the full force of 2 7th grade essence energy demon kings? Does this woman not want to live anymore? Or is she hiding her cultivation? In these 200 years, what happened? Princess Baihua smiled and asked with interest, since you want to know, why don't you wait for this concubine to act, before you act? This way, won't you know the answer? There's no need to go around in circles. Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and a bitter smile appeared on his face. He didn't answer this question. Oh, this concubine understands. A smile appeared in Princess Baihua's eyes. She didn't seem to need Xiao Hua's answer and continued, that year at the auction, you were willing to act without regard for your life for a young light beast that you didn't know. Today, you saw me. Even though you were very curious as to why I appeared here, and you also wanted to know if I had the strength of a level 4 expert, but, you ultimately didn't want to take the risk of me being injured and made the first move. Su Ji is right. Xiao Hua, you are a too good person. Speaking up to hear, Princess Baihua's eyes revealed warmth. She looked at Xiao Hua affectionately and said in a low voice, My dear Xiao, if time could turn back and today was still 200 years ago, how good would that be? Su Ji? Xiao Hua was stunned and looked at Princess Baihua in confusion. Unfortunately, Princess Baihua only looked at Xiao Hua as if she wanted to turn back 200 years of time. AI. Time is like flowing water, always passing by unconsciously. The past is always in the past. Even if there is a chance for 2 waves in the river to rise, they may not meet again for a moment. Xiao Hua simply asked. He lightly bit his lips and looked at this mysterious woman in front of him and softly answered. You don't understand. Princess Baihua raised her head and looked at the river below. The blood had already faded. She shook her head and said, You don't understand this concubine's heart from 200 years ago. That night when we met, just a few words were enough to set off great waves in this concubine's heart. Perhaps this concubine wanted to use you that day, but didn't this concubine's heart also want to see you again? Of course, this little thought is nothing more than a girl's yearning for love. But why did you only want to save the light beast that you didn't know and leave this concubine alone in the wilderness? This. Xiao Hua was somewhat at a loss for words. After all, the situation that day was urgent. After the light beast escaped, it had to go to the training grounds. He couldn't not follow. Moreover, Princess Baihua was the princess of a country. It was impossible for there to be no guards in Bronze Pillar country. She could go to the auction alone, so Xiao Hua didn't have to worry about her that day. But now that Princess Baihua asked in person, Xiao Hua couldn't answer. Chapter 44-42. Do you know? Princess Baihua stared at Xiao Hua and said, You really are a good person. And a good person who doesn't understand romance. You ignored a beautiful woman who could have given you the entire Cha Nu kingdom and went to save the demons. I hate you. Although Princess Baihua didn't gnash her teeth, Xiao Hua looked at her with an expression that he couldn't bear to look back. Xiao Hua's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and ask in a low voice, Jean, what happened that day? Jean, Princess Baihua smiled bitterly and let out a long sigh before replying, I am no longer your Jean, I gave you the chance to call me that in the early years, but you didn't. If you call me that now, Su Ji will probably be jealous. Xiaohua frowned and couldn't help but ask again, who is Su Ji? Is he your dual cultivation partner? He. Princess Baihua suddenly covered her mouth and giggled, I forgot. Although you are very familiar with Su Ji, you don't know his real name. Let me think, his current name should be Do Shan Jun. Hearing the 3 words Do Shan Jun, Xiaohua couldn't help but gasp and his entire body stiffened again. After a long while, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, in that case, senior. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could finish, Princess Baihua pouted and interrupted him, you just called me Jean, but after hearing Do Shan Jun's name, you directly called me senior? You really hurt my heart. Xiaohua helplessly smiled and said, senior must be joking. Junior's cultivation was taught by Senior Do Shan Jun. Senior Do Shan is a great expert who hides his strength. I presume Senior is also like him, right? AI. Unfortunately, Princess Baihua didn't have any awareness of being a senior. She sighed again and said, no wonder Su Ji praised you so much in front of me. Not only are you a rare Taoist cultivator who cares about the people of the world, but you are also a person who truly cares about the teachings of the Tao. I'm curious, why didn't you cultivate Confucianism? Why did you come to our Tao sect and become a Grand Ascension stage human? Hearing Princess Baihua call herself a member of the Taoist sect, Xiaohua was even more certain of her strength. He was well aware that even though he was a Grand Ascension stage human, he was still far from being able to match up to the mysterious Do Shan Jun. As for this Princess Baihua in front of him, she shouldn't be any worse than Do Shan Jun, right? He didn't know what Princess Baihua was planning, so he didn't dare to speak carelessly. He could only smile. Let's go. Princess Baihua flew in front of Xiaohua and very naturally reached out her hand to grab Xiaohua's arm. Tonight, accompany this concubine to look at the moon, this. Xiaohua was very embarrassed. He slightly leaned to the side, trying to avoid Princess Baihua's hand. This isn't appropriate, right? Unfortunately, even though Xiaohua had already reached the Grand Ascension stage, he was still unable to escape Princess Baihua's grasp. Princess Baihua hugged Xiaohua's arm and said with a smile, this concubine is just joking with you. Su Ji doesn't know about this, and he won't be jealous of Princess Baihua. But. Xiaohua felt the warmth of Princess Baihua's body and the softness of her arm. He was very embarrassed and said 2 buts in a row. However, just as he was about to decline, he suddenly understood and whispered, Princess. Princess Baihua? Yes. Princess Baihua smiled. This is Princess Baihua's last wish. You don't want to disappoint her in the afterlife, do you? It's just a good impression. Xiaohua said helplessly. Princess Baihua blinked and said, yes, it's just accompanying Princess Baihua to look at the moon. Seeing Princess Baihua like this, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of Fairy Jing. He sighed and didn't say anything else. Just like that, the man was like a jade pillar supporting the sky, his figure like a mountain, his aura like a rainbow, slowly walking under the stars. Like a little bird, the woman stayed by his side and hugged his arm tightly. She rested her head on his shoulder, and her black hair fell on his body. They didn't say anything and didn't need to talk about anything. Just like that, they walked through the night, the darkness, the wind, and the dew. When the first light of dawn appeared in the distant sky, the world turned dark again. Princess Baihua said faintly, ever since I started working for the throne, this feeling has become a distant memory of mine. Now that I think about it, to be able to spend a lifetime with the person I love, let alone the throne, even if it's everything in the world, it's nothing. Perhaps. Xiaohua didn't know what to say. He was still sad about Fairy Jing's death, so he really couldn't say anything to Princess Baihua. What an unromantic guy. Princess Baihua smiled and glanced at Xiaohua. She reached out and pinched Xiaohua's arm, saying, "Can't you say something sweet?" Xiaohua touched his nose with his left hand and bitterly smiled, "I'm afraid of being chased by Senior. That guy has a favor to ask of you right now, how could he be willing to chase you?" Princess Baihua smiled. Xiaohua stopped and saw that the darkness before dawn was gradually retreating. He turned to Princess Baihua and said, "Jean, the road will always have an end, but fate doesn't have an end. Fate doesn't have an end. Perhaps one day, you and I will meet again." With that, Xiaohua extended his left thumb and gently stroked Princess Baihua's eyebrows. "Yes." Princess Baihua closed her eyes and felt the warmth of Xiaohua's finger on her eyebrows. She whispered, "Fate is always wonderful. That damned Su Ji, if he had half of your sweet words, I wouldn't have." "Forget it, let's not talk about him." When Xiaohua's finger fell from between Princess Baihua's eyebrows, Princess Baihua also let go of his arm. Then, she charmingly combed her hair and smiled, "Since we met tonight, I've helped Princess Baihua fulfill her last wish. You can say that I didn't let her down." The night was silent, but Xiaohua's mind was full of thoughts. He thought about what Princess Baihua said after meeting her and knew that the current Princess Baihua was no longer the Princess Baihua from 200 years ago. He bowed and said, "Senior, what happened 200 years ago? Can you tell this junior now?" "My name is Xingyue." Princess Baihua glared at Xiaohua and said, "Calling me senior makes me feel old." "Yes, Fairy Xingyue." Xiaohua smiled, "So every woman doesn't like to grow old." Just as he said this, Xiaohua was suddenly startled. The smile on his face disappeared and he almost lost his voice. "Xingyue? Fairy? What's your relationship with Xingyue of the hidden immortal continent and Zhai Xinglu?" Fairy Xingyue turned her eyes and smiled. The dawn was like a flower blooming. She said, "Since you already know, why do you need me to explain?" Sigh. Xiaohua stopped being shocked and sighed, "After this junior saw the strength of Zhai Xinglu, I've been thinking about which expert created Xingyue. But I really didn't expect it would be a Dao cultivator like you. No wonder you know so much about this junior." Fairy Xingyue nodded, "I know about you from Princess Baihua's memories. Then, news about you was continuously sent to Zhai Xinglu. I remember that in the Bronze Pillar country, you threatened to fill Zhai Xinglu's Book of Heroes. I think Zhu Qing was just flattering you that day. He probably didn't expect that among the Dao cultivators in the Book of Heroes, besides Grand Mist Ancestor, you're the one with the most records. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happens, when you come out of Xingyue Palace, your heroic deeds will definitely surpass Grand Mist Ancestors." Maybe. Xiaohua smiled. Now, he really didn't care about the records in the Book of Heroes. "However, I'm still very curious. What's your relationship with the sutra seeking extreme happiness? This is something that has never been recorded in my Xingyue Palace." Fairy Xingyue didn't mention Princess Baihua and wanted to get to the bottom of it. "I think even Vairocana revered Buddha and immortal Emperor Gochen don't know about it, right? Since it's so secretive." Xiaohua smiled and said, "Why do you want to know? If you don't tell me, I won't tell you about Fairy Baihua." Xingyue looked at Xiaohua with a smile, a sly look in her eyes. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and replied, "If you don't want to say, then there's no need to. Anyway, there won't be a Princess Baihua in this world in the future. As for what happened 200 years ago, I don't want to know too much about it. Sigh, men are all ungrateful things." Fairy Xingyue sighed and said, "I thought you would be an exception. But after walking with me for a night, you forgot about Princess Baihua so quickly." Xiaohua, of course, knew that Fairy Xingyue was trying to provoke him. He didn't answer and just looked at the sun that had just risen in the distance with a smile. The orange-red color had already scattered all over the sky and was now slowly covering the earth. Okay. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't fall for her trick, Fairy Xingyue had to say, I'm afraid that you're the only one in this world who cares about Princess Baihua's life and death. If I don't tell you, who else can I tell? Fairy, please tell me. Xiaohua stopped smiling and looked at Fairy Xingyue seriously. Princess Baihua is a beautiful woman with a short life. Fairy Xingyue waved her hand and motioned for Xiaohua to follow her. While flying, she said, she lived in the palace of the Cha Nu kingdom since she was a child. Although she was a noble princess, in order to obtain the position of king, she racked her brains to calculate and compete with the other princesses for fame and fortune. She didn't have much happiness. She participated in the auction at the star-picking tower of the Bronze Pillar Kingdom for the position of king. She even invited you for this reason. It wasn't until you met her again on the dragon boat that she began to have a good impression of you. And when you took action for the sake of the baby of the light beast, she was deeply shocked. She really didn't expect that there would be such a fearless man in this world. Chapter 44-43. Just when she was a little tempted, she suddenly heard a rather familiar voice. She had occasionally heard this voice in the Cha Nu Kingdom's palace. If I'm not wrong, this voice should belong to the other princess's backer. But at that time, Princess Baihua wasn't completely sure, so she didn't tell you. When you followed the light beast and broke open Catfish's body, she escaped with the humans and demons. By then, you had already flown away with the light beast, so she couldn't catch up even if she wanted to. Old monster Xiaofan, Ao Shui, and that stag king also seemed to have something to do. They hid in a corner and didn't allow anyone to approach them. Princess Baihua had no choice but to return to Bronze Pillar country alone. On the way back, that person indeed appeared. He didn't even allow Princess Baihua to beg for mercy and killed her. After killing her, that person calmly escaped. When I passed by, Princess Baihua's body was almost cold. Princess Baihua went to Zhai Xinglu to bid, which was arranged by Zhai Xinglu. They wanted to find a few suitable bodies for me, and Princess Baihua happened to be one of them. At that time, my body was already somewhat old. When I saw Princess Baihua die, I simply occupied her body and obtained her memories. But at that time, my body wasn't stable yet, so I didn't find that person to avenge Princess Baihua. In the end, before I could do anything, Zhai Xinglu sent news that that person was actually killed by you. At that time, I felt that you and Princess Baihua's fate was not shallow. Last night, I accompanied you all the way. Other than fulfilling Princess Baihua's wish, I also wanted to thank you for avenging Princess Baihua. Hearing this, Xiaohua understood and nodded. The person who killed Princess Baihua should be Jia Sa country's Prince Hai Tian. This guy's strength of 5th grade essence energy is more than enough to kill Princess Baihua. That's right. It's him. Fairy Xingyu nodded. Jia Sa country's ambition is huge. But after you killed Hai Tian and a few Buddhist monks, their royal family was annihilated by the Immortal Palace's immortal soldiers. Since then, they have been unable to recover. When I returned to Cha Nu Kingdom, I also uprooted Jia Sa country's influence there. The princess who had led the wolf into the house didn't have any intention of killing Princess Baihua. Hai Tian running into Princess Baihua could only be said to be a coincidence, so I didn't kill the princess. Later on, I took the position of the queen of the Cha Nu country and fulfilled Princess Baihua's long-cherished wish. Only then did I leave the Cha Nu country. When I returned to Star Moon, I started paying attention to you because of Princess Hundred Flowers. Fairy Xingyue continued, I roughly flipped through the contents of the Book of Heroes and became increasingly interested in you. When I started looking for your origins, I suddenly realized that you are actually very mysterious. Even with the power of the stars and moon, I could only find out about your deeds in Longevity Town. After that, I couldn't find any clues at all. It was as if you fell into Longevity Town out of thin air. Later, Su Ji, who you met in Copper Pillar Nation and Black Wind Mountain Range, suddenly came to Star Moon. His purpose was the same as mine. He wanted to find out about your background. Because his love for talent, which was hurt by the Grand Mist ancestor, has recovered. He wants to create you, the almost extinct Taoist cultivator, a good person. In the end, I don't need to say more. He also has no clue. When he heard about what happened between you and Princess Baihua, he also sighed. After all, he was the Copper Pillar Academy's judge at that time. These things happened around him. Therefore, he made another decision. He wanted to impart some cultivation techniques to you. To be honest, I thought that he was too badly hurt by the Grand Mist ancestor. When he saw such a talented and broad-minded Taoist cultivator like you, he wanted to use you to deal with the Grand Mist ancestor. At that time, I even scolded him for being crazy. However, looking at your current strength and thinking about his decision that day, I really admire his divination skills. I really don't understand how he could determine that you could cultivate Unstoppable Thunderbolt to the extreme in 200 years' time. I also don't understand how he could determine that you are the key to our trip to Star Moon Palace this time. After all, at that time, you were just a small cultivator with 5th grade essence force. You even dared to suppress Bai Qingyu's Demon King. Oh, speaking of Bai Qingyu, when we heard that you were suppressed that day, Su Ji immediately rushed to Bai Qingyu. He knew that the rainbow seashell was powerful and was afraid that you would get involved with her. However, when he realized that the dragon was only similar to your soul and looked the same, he left. It was only then that Su Ji and I realized that the news about you in the 3 continents was all done by the dragon. You didn't even show your face. Of course, I found it strange. I activated the power of Star and Moon to search the hidden immortal continent, Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and Pure Land. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any trace of you. Until yesterday, when I met you above the swamp. Darling Xiao. At this point, Fairy Xing Yu's voice was as sweet as honey. Can you tell me, where did you come from? Where did you go in these 200 years? How did you cultivate your strength? Xiao Hua flew to Fairy Xing Yu's side and listened carefully. Although Fairy Xing Yu didn't explain in detail, Xiao Hua was still shocked. He really didn't expect that so many things had happened without his knowledge. Not only Do Shan Jun, but the mysterious Fairy Xing Yu in front of him had also been looking for his whereabouts. It seemed that, except for the concealment of the space, there was nothing he could hide from her. When he heard Fairy Xing Yu's question, he understood that it wasn't that Fairy Xing Yu and Do Shan Jun didn't believe him. Do Shan Jun had never asked about his origin. Fairy Xing Yu's curiosity was purely due to her instinctive curiosity as a female cultivator. Xiao Hua thought for a while and said, Fairy, it's not that I can't answer your questions. However, if Junior answers Fairy's question, can Fairy also tell Junior where Fairy and Senior Su Ji came from? This. Fairy Xing Yu's face revealed an awkward expression and her tone was a little hesitant. However, after a while, she said quickly, of course. Why not? Su Ji and I have already discussed this. Since we need your help, we can't tell you the truth. Otherwise, with your character, you might cause trouble again. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, is this Junior's character that bad? Didn't you just say that I'm a good person? You are a good person, but if you take action, you seem to be extremely ruthless. Fairy Xing Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Su Ji and I don't want to take this risk. Okay. Since Senior Su and Fairy Xing Yu are willing to be honest, I won't hide it anymore. Xiao Hua nodded and said, Fairy Xing Yu, tell me first. When you finish, I will tell you everything I know. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, Fairy Xing Yu glanced at him and said coquettishly, you are really cunning. I asked you first. How can you let me tell you first? Besides, Su Ji is not here at this time. I can't tell you first. Where is Senior Su now? Xiaohua understood and said with a smile, aren't we going to meet up with him in front of the Star Moon Palace? Of course we are rushing to the Star Moon Palace now. As for where Su Ji is now, I don't know. Fairy Xingyu replied, however, I think that if Su Ji knows that you are here, he will be very happy. He can't wait to come and find you. However, if he comes, won't our peace and quiet be destroyed? Hearing this, Xiaohua was speechless. He smiled bitterly and said, Fairy Xingyu, you'd better send a message as soon as possible. I am really afraid that Senior Su will hunt me down. He dares. Fairy Xingyu laughed again and said, besides, don't you still have me? If he wants to make a move, why fall out with him? If you and I join forces, Su Ji can only run away. Well, when Senior Su fishes the needle out of the sea one day, you two seniors will hunt me down again. It will be my turn to run away. Su Ji fishes the needle out of the sea. Fairy Xingyu was slightly stunned. Obviously, she did not understand the meaning of Xiaohua's words. A woman's heart is a needle at the bottom of the sea. Xiaohua said with a smile, with Senior Su's magical power, it shouldn't be difficult for him to fish a needle out of the sea, right? Humph. Fairy Xingyu snorted and said, it's not a problem for him to fish a needle out, but when it comes to fishing a woman's heart, he can't compare to you. Xiaohua raised his hand helplessly and said, Fairy Xingyu, I surrender. You can't always drag me into things, right? This junior has a lot of burdens in his heart. I always feel that Senior Su is watching me from the side. What do you think? If others want me to say it, I don't like to say it. Go ahead and enjoy yourself. Fairy Xingyu curled her lips and opened her mouth. A 3-inch long shuttle flew out of her mouth. This shuttle was different from the usual celestial devices Xiaohua had seen. Not only was it transparent, but there were also many starry spots inside. These starry spots flowed slowly as the shuttle moved, like a small galaxy. The shuttle landed in the air and Fairy Xingyu formed a magic art with both hands. As the magic art was revealed, the surrounding space vibrated. Wisps of crystal-like heaven and earth essence chi fell into the magic art. After a few minutes, the magic art was completed, and a small starlight appeared on Fairy Xingyu's index finger. Fairy Xingyu raised her hand and the starlight fell into the shuttle. Boom! The shuttle suddenly dispersed as if it had fused and turned into a galaxy. Go! Fairy Xingyu scolded softly. Her hands quickly formed another magic art and hit the galaxy. The galaxy flickered slightly in the air and immediately flowed into the void and disappeared. Seeing the shuttle disappear from his divine sense like a drop of water falling into the sea, Xiaohua's eyes became thoughtful. Chapter 44-44. Xiaohua, I heard that you know the thunder escape technique. Let's have a competition. Let me see the power of the world's #1 escape technique. After Fairy Xingyu finished speaking, she didn't wait for Xiaohua's reply. Then, her entire body started to distort rapidly. Swoosh! Like a gust of wind, she flew out. Rumble! Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent. He activated his true origin, and lightning surrounded his body. He also turned into a thunderbolt and flew in the direction of the cool breeze. The cool breeze was just a thunderbolt in the middle of the mountain. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. In front of a huge mountain range in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, there was a distortion in the space. Several gusts of cool breeze came out of the void and condensed into a human figure in the sky. This human figure looked extremely thin and flat, like a piece of starlight. After swaying a few times in the wind, it instantly became full like a balloon, revealing Fairy Xingyu's impressive figure. In just a few breaths, a bolt of lightning appeared above Fairy Xing Yu's head with a swoosh. Immediately, there was a rumbling sound of thunder in the void, as if thousands of horses were galloping. Amidst the lightning, Xiaohua's slender figure also appeared calmly. He. Fairy Xingyu looked at Xiaohua and said with a smile, "The so-called fastest thunder escape technique in the world is just this. In the past 10 days, you have not surpassed me by even one step." That's right, Fairy's wind escape technique has already reached the acme of perfection. It's something that Junior can't reach. Xiaohua's face didn't have any disappointment as he nodded and replied. Then, he looked in front of him and asked, "If Senior Su came from the direction of the Star Moon Palace, he should be here now, right? Why don't we put in more effort to welcome him?" Oh. Seeing that Xiaohua's figure moved slightly and was about to fly away, Fairy Xingyu seemed to understand something and said, "Xiaohua, tell me honestly. Have you activated your thunder escape technique to the extreme? Are you competing with me, or are you afraid that you can't find the Star Moon Palace? Are you flying with me?" Fairy, you think too much." Xiaohua faintly smiles and says, "Junior's strength can't compare to Fairy's, so of course my flying speed can't compare to yours." Humph. Fairy Xingyue did not move at all. She pointed in the direction that Xiaohua was about to fly and said, "That direction is already south. It's not where Xingyue Palace is located. Why are you flying there? Do you think that if I fly in this direction, the east will be in front of me? You can't tell the direction at all. You didn't want to overtake me because you were afraid that you would fly in the wrong direction, right?" This. Xiaohua scratched his head, somewhat embarrassed. "Forget it." Fairy Xingyu glared at Xiaohua and said, "I have no reason to compete with you in terms of flying speed. If you claim to be second in the entire 3 continents, no one would dare to claim to be first. Zhai Xinglu's Book of Heroes clearly states that your strength is 1 level higher than your cultivation level, and your flying speed is 1 level higher than your strength." Xiaohua's face was bitter as he spread his hands and said, "Fairy, you have really wronged me. My thunder escape technique is indeed inferior to Fairy's wind escape technique, so I was still thinking of how to ask Fairy for advice on the wind escape technique." You. Fairy Xingyu was really speechless. She scolded, "You are really the same as what the Book of Heroes says. You want all kinds of cultivation techniques. Don't you think you are a little greedy? You know the thunder escape technique and have cultivated it to the extreme. Why do you want my wind escape technique? Don't tell me you still want to cultivate the wind escape technique? Stones from other mountains can help Jade." Xiaohua smiled and said, "I just want to refer to other escape techniques to better cultivate the thunder escape technique." "Is that really the case?" Fairy Xingyu asked with a smile, as if she had a better understanding of Xiaohua's character. Xiaohua said seriously, "Of course. How could I lie to Fairy? Haven't you lied to me before?" Fairy Xingyu curled her lips and said, "Along the way. Haven't you been lying to me?" Since his purpose had been exposed, Xiaohua might as well pester her. He replied righteously, "Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Forget it. Fairy Xingyu waved her hand and said, "Su Ji has given you enough cultivation techniques. You don't have to insist on my wind escape technique. When Su Ji comes, I will ask him." "Thank you, Fairy." Xiaohua hurriedly thanked her and then scanned the surroundings with his divine sense. He said, "So Fairy and Senior Su agreed to meet here?" "Yes, this place is called Qingyun Ridge. In the early years, I came here with Su Ji to search for traces of Xingyue Palace, so I am very familiar with this place. We agreed to meet here and then go to Chitty River together." Fairy Xingyu said as she flew into the mountain range with great familiarity. "Chitty River?" Xiaohua was shocked and said anxiously, "Fairy, are you saying that Xingyue Palace appeared near Chitty River this time?" "Yes. Fairy Xingyu answered and flew into the foothills. There was a waterfall that was thousands of feet in size hanging on the mountain wall. The surging blue water flowed out of the foothills in a magnificent manner and went straight down thousands of feet. Then, it crashed into the pool in the mountain stream. The waterfall hit the rocks on the stone wall and rushed into the deep pool. The sound of the water was so loud that it seemed to drown out all the sounds in the world. Fairy Xingyu landed on a mountain ridge opposite the waterfall. There were several huge rocks flashing in the light of the water. Fairy Xingyu sat cross-legged on one of the huge rocks. Then, she faced the sky, as if she was meditating. Xiaofan released his divine sense to scan the surroundings. Other than a few ordinary birds and beasts, there were no other demon clan members. He could only fly to another huge rock. Before his figure could land, an extremely cold chi rushed over from the huge rock. Oh! Xiaofan took a closer look and thought, it turns out that these are rare cold ice jades. I don't know if they were born here or if they were left here by Senior Su and Fairy Xingyu. Then, Xiaofan also sat down cross-legged. A gust of cold chi rushed straight into his body. While Xiaofan activated his cultivation method to refine it, his eyes were rolling rapidly. He was thinking about how to get the wind escape skill from Fairy Xingyu. On this day, there was a rainstorm. Wild water droplets poured down like the Milky Way, covering the sky and the earth. In addition to the darkness in the sky, there was a faint layer of watery light. It was somewhat similar to the heavy water disaster in the untainted land. The world was covered by rain. The waterfall on the mountain ridge was even more devastating. The water was several times stronger than before, almost covering all the mountains that Xiaofan could see with the naked eye. The pool in the mountain stream had been filled. The water rushed into the distance along the mountain stream, looking similar to a mountain flood. Fairy Xingyu and Xiaofan were naturally not afraid of the rain. There was not a single drop of rain falling within a radius of 1,000 feet around them. However, at this time, Xiaofan did not close his eyes to meditate like Fairy Xingyu. He had already opened his eyes. Looking at the rapid water flow, he released his divine sense and explored the surrounding water. Oh! Suddenly, Xiaofan made a sound and looked sideways. Almost at the same time, Fairy Xingyu also opened her eyes and looked in the same direction. In just a moment, a divine sense as vast as the sea of smoke swept over from the rain. When it fell on the two of them, it immediately withdrew. Immediately after, all the raindrops within a radius of 100 miles suddenly exploded at the same time. Amidst the popping sounds, the raindrops once again shone with innumerable splendor. When the splendor flashed, the world suddenly fell silent again. Even the sound of the waterfall had disappeared. Woo! In the void, a watery light suddenly appeared. All the water droplets within 100 miles were filled with this watery light. All the water droplets that came into contact with the watery light emitted a strange vibration, gathering towards the sky. In the end, a transparent human figure was revealed. Wasn't that the peerless beauty Do Shanjun? As soon as Do Shanjun's appearance was revealed, his starry eyes moved slightly. As if adding the finishing touch, the transparent watery human figure was immediately colored. A living cultivator stepped out of the rain. However, at this time, Do Shanjun was no longer dressed like a Confucian cultivator. Instead, he was dressed in a Taoist robe and had an extraordinary temperament. As Do Shanjun's figure moved, the space within a radius of 100 miles began to move. Even the raindrops began to fall violently again. Xiaofan. Do Shanjun's gaze fell on Xiaofan. He said in surprise, You have already cultivated to the Mahayana realm? How is this possible? Xiaofan did not dare to be negligent. He had already stood up before Do Shanjun's figure appeared. At this time, he hurriedly moved forward and bowed. Junior greets Senior Su. Oh, it seems that Fairy Xingyu couldn't hold back and told you everything before I came. Su Ji was not surprised. He glanced at Fairy Xingyu, who was still sitting cross-legged on the ice jade, and said, "No." Xiaohua said with a smile, "Fairy Xingyu only told me your real name. I'm still waiting for you to come over and explain everything to me." "Humph, did you hear that? I didn't reveal anything about you. Don't wrongly accuse me like last time." Fairy Xingyu opened her eyes and said with a cold snort. There was no special expression on his face, which was far from the expression he had when he was with Xiaohua. Su Ji responded and flew to a cold ice jade to sit down. He looked at Xiaohua and said, "Did you get the jade eyes I left for you?" "I got it." Xiaohua nodded and replied, "Senior's divination technique is really amazing. You can actually predict what will happen 200 years later." "I'm ashamed." Su Ji shook his head and said, "I only know a little about divination. How could I be so clear about what will happen 200 years later? That day, I was just on a whim. I knew that you had some relationship with the Luo Yi Merchant Alliance, so I gave the jade eyes to the demon clan named Ingpa." Chapter 44-45. Xiaohua naturally knew that Su Ji was being modest. Just as he was about to speak, Fairy Xingyu said sarcastically, "I knew you would say that. You've only been a judge of the academy for a few days and you've already learned how to be hypocritical. If you didn't know what would happen today, how could you have given the jade eyes to that demon?" "I didn't say that I didn't foresee what would happen today. I just said that I didn't foresee it so clearly." Su Ji was not angry and only answered lightly. His tone, coupled with his otherworldly temperament, gave birth to an indescribable arrogance. "Humph, you're just a hypocrite," Fairy Xingyu said rudely. She snorted to show her disdain. Her expression was no different from that of a little girl who was quarreling in the secular world. Unfortunately, Su Ji did not take the bait. He ignored Fairy Xingyu and continued to look at Xiaohua. "Xiaohua, I think Fairy Xingyu has already made it very clear to you. This trip to the Star Moon Palace is very important to us. Of course, for you, it should also be a great opportunity. I think that since this is the case, we shouldn't hide anything from each other. Even if we don't gain anything from this trip to the Star Moon Palace, in the future, among the cultivators on the 3 continents who can stand shoulder to shoulder with us, you're the only one who can catch our attention. Therefore, we should face each other openly and honestly." "Unlucky, unlucky." Before Su Ji could finish speaking, Fairy Xingyu, who was next to him, cursed a few times. Then, she spat on the ground and said, "You haven't even seen the Star Moon Palace and you're already saying such unlucky things. Could it be that you're cursing?" "No." Su Ji glanced at Fairy Xingyu and said, "I'm just telling the truth." Xiaohua, who was watching from the side, was overjoyed. Xiaohua understood Fairy Xingyu's thoughts and actions very well. However, Su Ji just didn't cooperate. Xiaohua didn't know if he was really unromantic or if he didn't have Fairy Xingyu in his heart. Of course, the more the two of them acted like this, the more relieved Xiaohua was. After all, such a person's mind was relatively pure and would not be very calculative. Su Ji looked at Xiaohua again and said, "That day at Black Wind Ridge, I already used a secret technique to carefully examine your cultivation. There was absolutely no sign of damage, so it's impossible for you to have recovered your cultivation in the past 200 years. Then here comes the problem. Xiaohua, I have never heard of or seen any records of a human cultivator being able to advance from the spirit-severing stage in 200 years. And, if we use the strength standards of the 3 continents, it should be from the 5th level of essence energy directly to the 9th level of essence energy. I've already said this before." Fairy Xingyu seized the opportunity to speak. He just won't admit it. "So, Xiaohua, Su Ji ignored Fairy Xingyue and asked Xiaohua, "Can you tell me what happened in the past 200 years? Humph. Fairy Xingyue looked at Su Ji angrily and said, "I've already told Xiaohua. If it weren't for the agreement with you, he would have told me." Xiaohua finally spoke. He smiled and said, "Senior Su, could it be that the Star Moon Palace is very important to you?" "Of course it's important." Su Ji glanced at Fairy Xingyue and answered. "Then it seems that my cultivation level is also very important to our trip to the Star Moon Palace this time?" "That's right." Su Ji nodded again. "There's a place in the Star Moon Palace that requires the power of thunder. I'm not strong enough, so I need to borrow your cultivation level. Previously, your strength was only at the 5th level of essence energy and could not help me much. Therefore, besides you, I also found a few others. However, I never expected that you would actually be at the 9th level of essence energy. There's no need for those people to go." "That's strange." Xiaohua asked, puzzled. "I remember that when we were at the star-picking tower, Zhu Qing said very clearly that the Star Moon Palace is very useful for comprehending the power of the stars. Similarly, according to different cultivation methods, the opportunities are different. A Confucian cultivator can comprehend the heart of heaven and become a literary star, a demon king can sense the power of the stars and combine their physical bodies to become a great sage, a Taoist can break through the void and reach the realm of ascension. However, these opportunities are only for cultivators at the 7th or 8th level of essence energy. With my cultivation level, I'm afraid there's no point in entering the Star Moon Palace. Also, why does Senior value the Star Moon Palace so much? Why are you asking first?" Fairy Xingyue glared at Xiaohua and said, "Didn't we agree? You tell us first and we'll tell you later." Su Ji nodded. Fairy Xingyue is right. The Star Moon Palace was originally discovered by Fairy Xingyue in the 3 continents. Her Xingyue was formed entirely to search for the Star Moon Palace. Our purpose of searching for the Star Moon Palace is different from the purpose of the cultivators from the 3 continents. Actually, we also want to see if we can find our own opportunities from the opportunities of these cultivators. As for what this opportunity is, Xiaohua, you're the first cultivator in the 3 continents who knows about it. I'm afraid you're also the only one." As he spoke, Su Ji raised his right hand. Boom! A huge roar sounded from the waterfall. The waterfall rushed up into the sky like 10,000 water dragons. As it roared in the air, it covered an area of several hundred miles around them. Su Ji raised his hand again and made a grabbing motion. Crack! The waterfall above the 3 of them immediately froze. This solidification rapidly spread in all directions. In just a few breaths, the water that covered a radius of several hundred miles froze. Layers of mysterious fluctuations slowly flowed on the surface of the solidified water. Xiaohua tried to release his divine thought, but the entire water flow was like a huge boundary. Not only did it block sound and aura, but his divine thought also could not pass through it. Looking at the foothills again, the rain was no longer raining. The water flowed slowly, and the green leaves and grass were sparkling with water droplets. It was a beautiful scene. Show off, show off. The corners of Fairy Xingyue's mouth curled up as she rolled her eyes at Su Ji. Then, with a flick of her finger, a speck of starlight fell on the water curtain. Whoosh! In an instant, the entire water curtain shone with starlight, as if a starry sky had enveloped the 3 of them. "Hee hee, this is beautiful," Fairy Xingyue said with a smug smile. Su Ji's cold face was still the same. He turned to Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, now you should tell me what happened in the past 200 years, right? Senior, would you believe me if I said that I was not in the 3 continents for the past 200 years? Xiaohua asked with a smile. Nonsense. Of course, you were not in the 3 continents. Is there a need to ask? Fairy Xingyu continued, Su Ji and I used our magic, but we couldn't find you. How could you have been in the 3 continents? Senior, you should know where I was last seen, right? Xiao Hua was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he looked at Fairy Xingyu and asked with a smile. Fairy Xingyu smiled proudly and said, Of course. You were last seen at the River and Tide Temple in the Longevity Town. You even tried to stop. Oh, I understand. You were not trying to stop the sutra seeking of bliss held by the immortals and Buddhas. You were trying to stop that monk from taking down the Buddha role. You actually know that unknown. Chun Zong. At the end of her sentence, Fairy Xingyu thought of how Xiao Hua had instructed the 2 demon kings to participate in the sutra seeking of bliss in the water wave demon realm. She immediately understood Xiao Hua's intentions and exclaimed in surprise. Su Ji was still as calm as ever. However, he raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Xiao Hua with a strange light in his eyes. The sutra seeking of bliss has nothing to do with us, right? Xiao Hua did not answer Fairy Xingyu's question. Instead, he shook his head and said, Fairy, don't think too much. Yes. Fairy Xingyu smiled slightly and said in surprise, the last place you were seen was the Longevity Town. It was the beginning of the sutra seeking of bliss. However, the River and Tide Temple was not the last place you appeared. You failed to stop Chun Zong from taking down the Buddha role and then mysteriously disappeared. Dozens of days later, you suddenly flew out of the Liao River. At this time, there was a Confucian cultivator with the strength of a great grandmaster chasing after you. If I'm not mistaken, that Confucian cultivator should be the inspector of the Immortal Palace. He discovered that your Taoist cultivation had broken through the late stage of the nascent soul realm and was preparing to capture you and imprison you in the Immortal Palace. After that, you and that patrol inspector both disappeared without a trace. Later on, traces of you appeared in the hidden Immortal Continent and the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. This was also recorded in the Book of Heroes of Xingyu. However, when we discovered that the one suppressed in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm wasn't you, we deduced that the traces in these places were the work of that white dragon. Of course, Su Ji also went to the Immortal Palace. Although he carefully investigated, he did not find any trace of you being suppressed. He even found out that 5 inspectors of the Immortal Palace were killed during that time. They were Zhang Qing, Wu Han, Sun Zhong, Sun Cheng, and Zhong Xing. As for which one disappeared with you, I don't know. Hearing that Su Ji could find out the information about the inspector of the Immortal Palace, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to ask Sun how, but when he thought about it, he couldn't help laughing. Sun Jian was the immortal Qingyuan of the Immortal Palace. Wouldn't it be 100 times more convenient for him to investigate Sun Hao than Su Ji? So he nodded and said, Fairy Xingyu is really insightful. Fairy Xingyu is right. I was discovered by the Confucian Great Grandmaster Sun Cheng in the Liao River. He chased after me from the Longevity Town. During that time, Wu Han and Sun Hao joined in. I risked my life to kill Wu Han, but was later forced to an unavoidable place by Sun Hao and Sun Cheng. Speaking of this, Xiao Hua smiled and asked, Fairy Xingyu, do you know where this place is? Oh. Where? In this world, there are too many unavoidable places. I don't know. Fairy Xingyu shook her head, which was rare. Oh. Xiao Hua asked curiously, did nothing special happen in the Immortal Palace during that time? Nothing special. Su Ji nodded. I entered the Immortal Palace's Hall of Enlightenment and read the heavenly policy of the Immortal Palace. I didn't find anything unusual. If what you said was unusual, or Immortal Emperor Gaochen deliberately concealed it, I'm afraid I couldn't find it. Chapter 44-46. Alas! Xiao Hua sighed. He already understood that since Su Ji did not know that Sun Cheng and Wu Han had died in the Black Ruins Mountain, then the immortal soldiers and immortal generals that Sun Jian had stationed in the Black Ruins Mountain must have been killed by Sun Hao. The immortal palace would definitely not leave such a thing in the Hall of Enlightenment. How could Su Ji have guessed that he would fall into the heavenly prison? Xiao Hua looked at Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu and said word by word, Black Ruins Mountain. What? Hearing Xiao Hua say the words Black Ruins Mountain, both Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu turned pale with fright. With a slight shake of their bodies, they actually flew up from the cold jade stone and cried out in a low voice, You actually fell into the heavenly prison? Yes. Xiao Hua nodded. I was no match for Sun Cheng and Sun Hao. After risking my life to kill Sun Cheng, I was also thrown into the heavenly prison by Sun Hao. How is that possible? How is that possible? Fairy Xingyu said, How is that possible, twice in a row and cried out, You actually came out of the heavenly prison alive. There are actually people in this world. No, there are actually living creatures that can come out of the heavenly prison alive. This is truly inconceivable. Su Ji, who had always been calm, could not help but be excited. He suppressed his trembling voice and asked in a low voice, Xiao Hua, quickly tell us, what is inside the heavenly prison? How did you escape from the heavenly prison? Alas! Xiao Hua already had an excuse. He sighed and said, Seniors, it's not that I don't want to tell you what is inside, but I don't know what the real heavenly prison is. When I fell into the heavenly prison, it was pitch black. I couldn't see anything. My divine sense couldn't leave my body. I couldn't see with my naked eyes. There wasn't even a trace of sound. But occasionally, there would be some strange flashes of light. At the same time, there would also be some strange chi of heaven and earth. Oh, there would also be fluctuations similar to the thunder tribulation. Junior was drifting in the darkness. I originally wanted to die. But when I wanted to die, I couldn't activate my Dharma power and couldn't even move my body. Later, when there was chi of heaven and earth, I didn't want to die. Junior thought, since there is the chi of heaven and earth, I can cultivate. If I can cultivate to the level of immortal ascension, will I be able to escape from the heavenly prison with the help of the immortal ascension thunder tribulation? Therefore, during my time in the heavenly prison, I only focused on cultivation. Speaking of this, I have to thank Senior Su. If it weren't for Senior's cultivation methods, I wouldn't have been able to reach the Mahayana realm. And then? Su Ji was both excited and disappointed. He took a few deep breaths and asked calmly. The heavenly prison sometimes has world yuan qi, and sometimes it doesn't. Also, the fluctuations of the lightning tribulation are very rare. I have cultivated in the heavenly prison for 40,000 years, and barely reached the great ascension stage. Xiao Hua continued, after reaching the grand ascension stage, Junior's heart is finally at ease. I just have to wait for another 10,000 years for the lightning tribulation to descend. But, just as I was cultivating, a strange spatial ripple appeared in the darkness. This ripple was even more powerful than a thunderbolt, and it tore apart the space around me. There was an extremely strong suction force in the spatial rift, and I couldn't avoid it before I was sucked in. Then, the huge impact knocked me out. When I woke up, I was already near the South Sea. What? You just came out of the heavenly prison? Fairy Xingyu was even more surprised. You're not lying to us, are you? Xiao Hua smiled. He was actually testing Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu at this time, and he was also wondering if he should follow them to the Star Moon Palace. Yes. Xiao Hua replied, it's that simple. When Junior returned to the South Sea, I found out that I had spent 40,000 years in the heavenly prison, and the 3 continents had only spent 200 years. Later, Junior heard about Qingbao's banquet, so I hurried to buy Qingyu. Then, I got Senior Su's jade eyes from Ingpa and immediately rushed to the Chitty River. Xiaohua didn't mention anything about his Fortune Gate disciples, but he also believed that neither the South Sea Dragon Palace nor Bai Qingyu's matter would reach Fairy Xingyu's ears for the time being. Firstly, the South Sea Dragon Palace was a disgrace to the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, so they would definitely keep their mouths shut. Even if it was leaked, it wouldn't be known by Zhai Xinglu in a short period of time. Secondly, although Bai Qingyu's matter was sensational, it happened very recently. Not to mention that the Seven Stars Great Saints news would cover up Bai Qingyu's matter. Even if Zhai Xinglu got the news, it might not be delivered to Fairy Xingyu so quickly. Thirdly, Zhai Xinglu of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm had almost disappeared. The entire Star Moon Palace was busy with the Star Moon Palace, so Bai Qingyu's matter wouldn't attract their attention for the time being. Of course, Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji would definitely know about this after the Star Moon Palace, but which cultivator didn't have secrets? Since Xiaohua had told them about the heavenly prison, he believed that they wouldn't pester him anymore. Impossible, it can't be that simple. Fairy Xingyu didn't believe it as expected. It's not like I haven't been to the Black Ruins Mountain. Even Su Ji and I don't dare to go in. How could you come out so easily? Moreover, the Black Ruins Mountain has existed for so many years. I've never heard of anyone going in and coming out alive. Hee, Fairy, if you didn't ask, would I have told you? If I didn't tell you, who would know that I came out of the heavenly prison alive? Xiaohua retorted with a smile. In short, I don't believe that you can come out so easily. Fairy Xingyu shook her head and said, if you're not too lucky, then you're lying to us. No, you must be lying to us. There's no essence qi of heaven and earth in the heavenly prison. Even immortals can't survive there. How could you cultivate there? Xiaohua's face showed a meaningful smile as he asked, Fairy, are you an immortal? Have you been to the heavenly prison before? Xingyue. Su Ji, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Don't forget that there's the Star Moon Palace in the 3 continents. What's wrong with the Star Moon Palace? What does this have to do with the Star Moon Palace? Fairy Xingyu was stunned and somewhat puzzled. Su Ji explained, the Star Moon Palace is about to appear soon. Isn't it similar to the time when Xiaohua escaped? Hiss. Fairy Xingyu sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. She said, if that's the case, then it's really possible. Xiaohua, your luck is really that good? If I claim to be the second luckiest in the world, I'm afraid no one would dare to claim to be the first. Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders and replied in all seriousness, Junior's biggest weakness is that my luck is too good. Ha ha ha. Fairy Xingyu covered her mouth and laughed until she was trembling. After a while, she said breathlessly, you're really too glib-tongued. No wonder Princess Baihua had a good impression of you after seeing you once. On the other hand, Su Ji looked at Xiaohua and said, your experience is truly inconceivable. We forced you to tell us about the heavenly prison in the Black Ruins Mountain. You can't tell other cultivators about it in the future. Oh? Why? Xiaohua was stunned and felt warmth in his heart. He could hear trust and concern in Su Ji's words. No one knows what the heavenly prison is. Any cultivator knows that once they enter the heavenly prison, there's no way out. Therefore, no one dares to go near the Black Ruins Mountain. However, if they know that someone can survive in the Black Ruins Mountain and cultivate there for 10,000 years, which is only equivalent to 100 years in the 3 continents, even if they know that the chances of survival are very small, they'll still rush into the Black Ruins Mountain. Su Ji said earnestly, think about it. If a Dao sect cultivator who's only a nascent soul cultivator enters the Black Ruins Mountain and comes out as a human Mahayana cultivator, how many cultivators can resist such temptation? Yes, I understand. Xiaohua bowed and said, after today, I won't mention this again. Also, Suji said again, stay away from the Black Ruins Mountain in the future. According to what I know, the Black Ruins Mountain isn't something from the 3 continents. Or rather, the heavenly prison should be a space where the chaos divine realm fell into the 3 continents. The time in the heavenly prison is different from the time in the 3 continents. There might even be many different times and spaces in the heavenly prison, like layers and layers of willow catkins. And at the root of this space, there might be a trace of connection with the chaos divine realm. Of course, once this connection disappears, the entire Black Ruins Mountain and the entire heavenly prison will be completely destroyed. Don't think that after going in and coming out, you'll get greedy again. I'll be honest with you. This time, your luck is too good. The Star Moon Palace just happened to pass by the space where the heavenly prison is, and that's why you were brought out. Otherwise, even if you cultivated to the Ascension realm, the heavenly tribulation wouldn't be born in the heavenly prison. Yes. The more Su Ji said this, the more relieved and happy Xiao Hua was. He nodded and said, I understand. Actually, my days in the heavenly prison were miserable beyond words. Other than darkness, there was only darkness. I even had thoughts of dying. I definitely won't try that kind of inhuman life again. Senior, please don't worry. At this point, Xiao Hua was suddenly shocked again. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Su Ji's words made him think of the transportation passage from the Chaos Divine Realm to the Great Snow Mountain. After all, the Chaos Divine Realm was the upper realm. It was far from the 3 continents. Xiao Hua didn't know how many realms there were in between. If there wasn't any special opportunity, he definitely wouldn't be able to return to the 3 continents from the upper realm. Unless, as Su Ji said, there was an opportunity like the Star Moon Palace that could tear the heavenly prison apart. Therefore, Xiao Hua hurriedly asked, that's right, Senior Su. You said that the Star Moon Palace's appearance could tear the heavenly prison apart. What's going on with the Star Moon Palace? Isn't the Star Moon Palace an ancient relic of the 3 continents? Chapter 44-47. Hee hee. Fairy Xingyu laughed again. Don't worry, don't worry. Let's finish your story first. It won't be too late to tell you later. What else do you want to know? Didn't I tell you everything? Xiao Hua looked innocent, as if he had been wronged. Su Ji asked, Xiao Hua, are you from the 3 continents? When I was preparing to give you the cultivation method and other things, I did check all the Dao sect cultivators in the 3 continents, but I couldn't find your origin no matter how hard I tried. It was as if you appeared in the Longevity Town out of thin air. Xiao Hua had already thought it through. He actually wanted to hide the matter of the West Sea, but he had met the Grand Mist Ancestor, so the matter of the West Sea could not be hidden from Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu. Moreover, Xiao Hua also had an extravagant hope in his heart. He wanted to get the method to return to the Dawn Rain continent from these 2 mysterious experts. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I appeared in the Longevity Town out of thin air, but, the first time I appeared in the 3 continents was not in the Longevity Town, but in the West Sea. The West Sea? You are really not a human from the 3 continents. Fairy Xingyu felt a little strange, but she replied with certainty, Su Ji, see, I'm right. Yes, I'm from the Dawn Rain continent. A rogue cultivator. Xiao Hua wanted to say that he was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, but he suddenly remembered that he had been expelled by the Imperial Thunder sect. He could not help but feel sour in his heart and changed his words to a rogue cultivator. Dawn Rain continent? Su Ji was stunned and thought for a while. He turned to look at Fairy Xingyu and asked curiously, Xingyu, why don't I know that there's a world called the Dawn Rain continent near the 3 continents? Yes. I don't know either. I've never heard of the name of this world. Fairy Xingyu was also at a loss. How can you not know? Su Ji asked faintly. Don't you claim to know everything? I just don't know. So what? Fairy Xingyu said rudely. Don't you also claim to know everything? Why don't you know? Hee, seniors. Xiaohua smiled as he looked at the two experts flirting with each other. When Junior first arrived at the Western Ocean, he encountered an extremely interesting matter. Oh, what's the matter? Fairy Xingyu raised her eyebrows and asked curiously. Xiaohua didn't answer him. Instead, he looked at Su Ji and said, presumably, Senior Su has already guessed it. If you didn't say it, I wouldn't have guessed it. Now that you've said it, of course I know. Su Ji immediately understood after hearing this. Unconsciously, a dark cloud appeared on his face. Fairy Xingyu was also a little surprised, but when she saw Su Ji's reaction, she immediately understood and said with a smile, I was wondering. The Grand Mist Ancestor was being suppressed in the West Sea's eye, so how could he escape? So it's you, the Jinx, who appeared. Yes, Junior met Master Qing Chen from the Pure Land of Ultimate Bliss, Master Leopard from the Thousand Beast Sacred Ground, Su Zhuoyang and Chu Muhuan from the Hidden Immortal Continent. They were invited by the Deputy Inspector of the West Sea Dragon Palace, Xiancheng, to explore the West Sea Lost Treasure. When they saw that Junior's cultivation was good, they invited Junior along. However, the treasure map of the West Sea Lost Treasure was bait thrown out by the Grand Mist Ancestor. Other than Junior and Xiancheng, the rest of the human and beast clans, and by Haojiao, who secretly followed Xiancheng into the West Sea's eye, were all killed by the Great Array. When the Grand Mist Ancestor saw that Junior rescued him, he was afraid that Junior would reveal his whereabouts, so he threw Junior into the Great Array. Grand Mist Ancestor is a heartless person. Back then, Su Ji spent a lot of effort to cultivate him. Fairy Xingyu snorted coldly and said. However, before she could finish, Su Ji said, everyone has their own aspirations. We don't have to force others. Besides, he didn't promise us anything. Hearing Su Ji's words, Xiaohua felt even more relieved. The Grand Mist Ancestor treated Su Ji so well. Even with Su Ji's strength, Su Ji didn't directly attack the Grand Mist Ancestor. Xiaohua had helped Su Ji, so how could Su Ji scheme against him? Moreover, Fairy Xingyu had used Princess Baihua's body, and Princess Baihua's memory had a good impression of him. Therefore, Fairy Xingyu shouldn't harm him. Therefore, Xiaohua had decided that no matter how difficult the trip to the Star Moon Palace was, he had to go. I can't stand seeing you like this. Fairy Xingyu snorted coldly again with an indifferent look on her face. However, the trace of admiration in her eyes revealed her true feelings. In your words, someone bought you, yet you're still helping them count their money. And then? Su Ji ignored Fairy Xingyu and asked Xiaohua, how did you get out of trouble? The Grand Mist Ancestor was suppressed by the West Sea Eye. I had no choice but to fall into the West Sea Eye under the pressure of the Great Array. Then I rushed into an unknown place along the West Sea Eye. Later, I'm sorry, I fainted from the impact of the space pressure. When I woke up, I was in the Jiangchao ridge of the Longevity Town. Xiaohua's face turned slightly red. He wasn't lying, but he felt that he had lost face because he kept fainting. Su Ji didn't mind and looked at Fairy Xingyu. Fairy Xingyu nodded, Xiaohua is right. In the Longevity Town's Liao River, there seems to be a Yuzhou cauldron set up by the Confucian Heavenly Court. There should be space meridians there. He might have been lucky and found the space meridian leading to the Longevity Town in the West Sea Eye. That's how he was sent to the Liao River. Fairy Xingyu looked at Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, you're so lucky. I hope it's still useful in the Star Moon Palace. Of course. Xiaohua says with a smile, since Senior Su treats this junior like this, this junior's good luck will naturally bring him. However, I also want to ask Fairy Xingyu and Senior Su a question. Oh, go ahead. When we know, we'll definitely tell you. Su Ji answered without hesitation. I just want to know if there's a space meridian leading to the Dawn Rain continent from the 3 continents. Although Fairy Xingyu had said that she didn't know about the Dawn Rain continent, he still didn't want to give up. Fairy Xingyu smiled bitterly. Xiaohua, didn't I say it before? It's not that we don't want to help you, but the problem is that we don't know which realm the Dawn Rain continent is. How can we help you? Xiaohua looked at Su Ji, unwilling to give up, and asked, Senior, if possible, can you think about it again? If Xingyue says she doesn't know, then she really doesn't know. Su Ji shook his head and said, Of course, the name of the realm we know may be different from the name you mentioned. Without waiting for Su Ji to finish speaking, Fairy Xingyu smiled and said, Xiaohua, you're now a human Mahayana realm cultivator, and your strength has reached the upper stage of the 9th grade of essence force. If there are no accidents, you will definitely ascend within 10,000 years or even several thousand years. Why do you have to return to the Dawn Rain continent? Could it be that you can't ascend in the hidden immortal continent? Although the immortal palace of the Confucian cultivators is powerful, with your character of not causing trouble, they won't make things too difficult for you. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. He naturally knew that he didn't need to spend thousands of years, let alone tens of thousands of years. Therefore, he wanted to find a way back to the Dawn Rain continent even more. He also knew that after he ascended, he would probably have no chance to return to the Dawn Rain continent. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, Although I'm a rogue cultivator, I have a beautiful memory in the Imperial Thunder sect of the Dawn Rain continent. Then Xiaohua roughly explained the matter of the Imperial Thunder sect, and finally said, My master had no choice but to sacrifice his life for me, and Xue also sacrificed her life for me. My other dual cultivation partner still doesn't know whether I'm dead or alive. I feel that if I don't return to the Dawn Rain continent, I won't be able to get rid of the lingering thoughts in my heart. That's right. Fairy Xingyu gnashed her teeth and said, You just have to go back and let that snobbish Imperial Thunder sect see that the disciple they expelled is now a Mahayana realm cultivator. A peerless genius who cultivated from the nascent soul realm to the Mahayana realm in just 200 years. Let them regret it until their intestines turn green. However, at this point, she glared at Xiaohua again and said, As for that jealous fairy Wuxia, it's fine if you don't look for her. I think that little girl Xue is still a good choice. Alas, it's a pity that she's already dead. Fairy Wuxia took advantage of her for nothing. Su Ji pondered for a moment and said, Let's go and see the senior brothers in the Myriad Thunder Valley. Your senior brother Xiangyang is excellent. You also think of your senior brother in the Punishment Palace? Fairy Xingyu asked gently. Not the senior brother in the Punishment Palace. Su Ji looked into the distance and said, It's an elder brother in my hometown. When Fairy Xingyu heard this, there was a trace of nostalgia in her eyes. She whispered, That's an extremely distant memory. Xiaohua naturally knew that their hometown was a secret in the hearts of Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu. He didn't dare to ask more and just watched from the side. After a few minutes, Su Ji withdrew his gaze from the distance and looked at Fairy Xingyu and said seriously, Xingyue, since we can't return to our hometown, why don't you help Xiaohua? Your law palace must have records of the 3 continents and the surrounding realms. You might as well think of Xiaohua. Yes, I know. Fairy Xingyu nodded and said, Although this matter is forbidden in the law palace, I don't think Celestial Master of Law will know about this, right? Su Ji blinked his eyes and said with a smile, Of course not. Fairy Xingyu's face turned slightly red. She looked up at Xiaohua and asked, Xiaohua, first tell me what's so special about the Dawn Rain continent. Also, what was the situation when you came from the Dawn Rain continent to the 3 continents? You didn't faint in the space passage again, did you? I didn't faint this time. Xiaohua said with a smile, I remember the situation in the space passage clearly. Okay, tell me about the situation in the Dawn Rain continent. Fairy Xingyu nodded and asked. Chapter 44-48. After Xiaohua finished explaining the situation of the Dawn Rain continent, Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji were both surprised. Su Ji asked, What? You said that there are only Taoist cultivators in the Dawn Rain continent? Oh, there are also sword cultivators and beast cultivators. There are no Confucian cultivators or Buddhist cultivators. There are no demon clans? Yes, there are no traces of Confucian cultivators. There are only Buddhist cultivators. Xiaohua nodded. According to legend, there were Confucian cultivators and Buddhist cultivators in ancient times, but they were all killed by our Taoist cultivators. Impossible. Fairy Xingyu shook her head without hesitation. There is no such realm nearby. Maybe. Su Ji thought for a moment and said, Xiaohua's cultivation was not high enough, and he might not have experienced many places, so he couldn't have seen the whole Dawn Rain continent. Yes, yes. Xiaohua nodded and said, in the northwest of the Dawn Rain continent, there are so-called soul cultivators who cultivate the 12 great gods. On the other side of the Million Mountains, there seems to be a place called Defeat League. See, you're talking about soul cultivators? Soul cultivators of the 12 great gods? Fairy Xingyu exclaimed, and her face showed even more surprise. Impossible. That's absolutely impossible. What's impossible? Su Ji was also stunned. He looked at Xiaohua and then at Fairy Xingyu and asked curiously, what are the 12 great gods? What is a soul cultivator? Remember. Fairy Xingyu's face showed a rare look of horror. She said, you must never mention the 12 great gods and soul cultivators in the future. If you still want to live and not be hunted down by the celestial venerables. Su Ji already understood and nodded. I understand. This is a forbidden power. Then he looked at Xiaohua and said very seriously, Xiaohua. Can you remember? Yes, I understand. From this moment on, I have completely forgotten about the great gods and soul cultivators. Xiaohua's heart trembled and he hurriedly replied. However, he was extremely bitter in his heart. When he was on the Dawn Rain continent, he was afraid of being hunted down by Taoists. When he was on the 3 continents, he was also hunted down by Confucian cultivators. Now that he had finally reached the Grand Ascension stage, he was also afraid of being hunted down by the so-called celestial venerables, just because he was a soul cultivator. Alright, Xiaohua, tell me more about the spatial meridian you passed through. Fairy Xingyu asked solemnly. As far as I can remember, there is absolutely no such space vein. It shouldn't be a spatial vein. Xiaohua hesitated for a moment before saying, Junior feels that it's a few layers of innate restrictions. You. Hearing this, Fairy Xingyu almost jumped up from the ice jade. She looked at Xiaohua in disbelief and said, you actually passed the Great Meru Buddhist Formation, the 5 Elements Destruction Formation, and the Clear Song of Time Demon Formation? This, how is this possible? Fairy, so you actually know the names of these innate formations. Xiaohua was overjoyed and said anxiously, isn't Junior just lucky? Bullshit luck. Fairy Xingyu sat down dejectedly and looked at Su Ji. Why don't you and I have such good luck? Xingyu. Su Ji was obviously confused. He asked curiously, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? It's right that you don't understand. Fairy Xingyu looked at Su Ji and forced a smile. If you knew, you wouldn't be alive now. Su Ji nodded and did not ask any more questions. After a full 10 minutes, Fairy Xingyu asked again, Xiaohua, tell me in detail, all right. Xiaohua nodded and told her the story. Finally, he said, Junior went from the Guihe Sea, east of the Dawn Rain continent, to the West Sea of the Three Continents. However, in the end, I still fainted. I don't remember where I was in the West Sea. You don't have to regret it. Even if you didn't faint, you definitely wouldn't be able to find that passage again. Fairy Xingyue said with fear on her face. Didn't I say just now? There's the Great Meru Buddhist formation of the Buddhist sect inside. The passage is so big when you go in, but from the outside, it's smaller than the eye of a needle. The naked eye, Buddhist consciousness, divine thought, eye-clearing technique, and so on can't detect it. Only the three Buddha lords of the Buddhist sect can see it. Moreover, it said that you have to reach the golden body 6th refinement stage or above. Also, the passage you passed through only exists temporarily. It must have disappeared by now. Xiaohua, I can tell you seriously that you definitely won't be able to return to the Dawn Rain continent, even if you're lucky enough to escape from the heaven prison. Hearing Fairy Xingyue's words, Xiaohua's heart turned cold. He asked helplessly, Fairy, is there really no way at all? Yes. Fairy Xingyue nodded. Because even Su Ji and I can't find the flaws of the three divine prohibitions and safely pass through the Song of Time demon formation, let alone you. Just give up. Sigh, okay. Xiaohua sighed. He also understood that if it wasn't impossible, Fairy Xingyue wouldn't say such a thing. Xiaohua. Su Ji also said, even I don't know about this. It can be seen how secretive this matter is in the immortal world. You must remember it. Yes, this junior understands. Xiaohua answered casually, but he was stunned in an instant. He said in surprise, what? Immortal. Immortal world? Aren't the two seniors from the 10,000 demon realm? Humph, what do we have to do with the 10,000 demon realm? Fairy Xingyue looked at Xiaohua's surprise and snorted coldly. The 10,000 demon realm has everything. There's the spirit clan, the demon clan, and the divine clan, but there's no human clan. Su Ji and I are real humans. How can we be from the 10,000 demon realm? But are the seniors really from the immortal world? Xiaohua still couldn't believe it. Isn't it impossible for the immortals from the immortal world to return to the cultivation world? It's impossible to return to the cultivation world normally. Su Ji explained, occasionally, there will be abnormal returns. But as long as they fall into the cultivation world, it will be extremely difficult to return to the immortal world again. TSK. Fairy Xingyue curled her lips and looked at Su Ji. Don't be fooled by him. You gave him so many cultivation methods. I don't believe that he can't guess that you're from the immortal world. Xiaohua shook his head and said, this junior did have this idea, but the problem is that I don't think any immortals can come to the three continents, so I can only guess that they're from the 10,000 demon realm. You can return to the three continents through the space crack of the heavenly prison. Why can't we? Fairy Xingyue was even more skeptical. Xiaohua looked at Fairy Xingyue, who was only at the nascent soul stage. He really couldn't associate her with the immortals in his mind. He smiled bitterly and said, then, what kind of immortals are you? What's your purpose in coming to the three continents? What's the immortal world like? Su Ji glanced at Xiaohua and said faintly, we have no right to tell you what the immortal world is like. Anyway, you'll soon ascend and you'll know in the future. I'm sure you know that there are many things that you shouldn't know until the time is right. This won't be good for you, me, or even Xingyue. It'll even be good for the cultivators of the three continents. Okay. Xiaohua was helpless. In fact, what Su Ji said was right. There were many things that he would never tell Lu Yi and other disciples in advance, so as not to cause too many unforeseen events. He could only nod and say, Senior, please tell me what you can. My name is Su Ji. My Taoist name, it's not worth mentioning. Su Ji said, I'm the punishment envoy of a punishment palace in the immortal realm. My Taoist name is Fairy Xingyue. As for my real name, it's not worth mentioning. Fairy Xingyue, who was next to him, covered her mouth and smiled. She said as if she was talking to Su Ji, I'm the punishment envoy of a punishment palace in the immortal realm. When Xiaofan heard this, he felt a headache coming. He smiled bitterly again and said, Seniors, this explanation doesn't seem to be any different from not explaining, right? Su Ji ignored him and said, When I was on a business trip, I happened to encounter a star-field starburst in a celestial realm. The star-field starburst covered a large area and affected several star fields in succession. I was preparing to escape when I sent a message to the punishment palace. But at that time, my punishment celestial weapon suddenly sensed the location of the immortal slaying stage in the immortal realm. This immortal slaying stage is what was recorded in the jade eyes I gave you at the beginning. Seeing that Xiaofan was about to speak again, Su Ji hurriedly said, As for what the immortal slaying stage is and how it was lost, don't ask. I don't know either. Okay. Xiaofan opened his mouth and closed it again. He thought to himself, since you don't want me to ask, I can't explain. Let's just leave it at that for now. Because the immortal slaying stage is very important to the immortal realm, I didn't dare to neglect it. I wanted to send a message to the punishment palace again, but the star-field starburst was approaching. I didn't dare to stay for long. I hurriedly found a gap in the star-field starburst and went to find it according to the celestial weapon of punishment. But before I found the immortal slaying stage, I met Fairy Xingyue. Su Ji glanced at Fairy Xingyue. Su Ji is the punishment envoy, the immortal envoy who carries out punishments. Fairy Xingyue continued, I am the punishment envoy. My duty is to control the immortal law and punish according to the law. Since I want to control the immortal law, I have to investigate all the star fields in the celestial realm. It's somewhat similar to the inspector in the immortal palaces of the 3 continents. When I met Su Ji, I received a secret order from the celestial venerable of justice. I was following the law to check some immortal restrictions in a certain celestial realm. I had just ascertained the situation of the immortal restrictions and was about to send a message to the celestial venerable. But at that time, I suddenly discovered that a Confucian cultivator from the heavenly court had barged into the immortal realm. This Confucian cultivator had become a demon and wanted to sacrifice the immortals in the star field. When I discovered this, the blood sacrifice had already begun. The stars began to explode one by one, gradually forming a terrifying star field starburst. I didn't dare to neglect it and hurriedly sent a message about the star field starburst to the Palace of Justice. Unfortunately, before I could send the message, I was discovered by the Confucian cultivator who had become a demon. That Confucian cultivator should have a cultivation level that was slightly higher than mine. I fought with him for a while and realized that I was no match for him. I hurriedly prepared to escape and ask for help. The Confucian cultivator pursued me step by step. Unable to escape, I risked my life to escape into the star field starburst. But the Confucian cultivator didn't care about his own life and chased after me. At that time, I met Su Ji. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.